Hey guys, welcome back to Monday Warfare, the Battles Within. We're all the way up to episode 17 now, and we're in April of 1996. I'm your host, Ray Russell, and joining me, welcome back, Mr. Steve Eckstadt to the program.
What's going on, guys?
Steve, we've got 2 more weeks of Raw and Nitro to cover. Of course, we're coming off of the April 8th week. Of course, there was no Nitro last week, so they've got a lot of making up to do here this week. We're going to see how they do on the 15th episode. But before we get to the TV, I was curious, you just finished watching these recently. How would you say WCW is done in building to their upcoming Slamboree pay-per-view?
Terrible.
Okay, because I'm asking this because it's noted in the news that Slamboree will no longer be a Legends reunion. There will no longer be a Legends Hall of Fame ceremony. It's going to be Lethal Lottery and Battle Bowl. And just based on some of the matches that they draw, I can't believe they're announcing. I would have rather have waited and just pulled, I'm using air quotes, Steve, pulled these matches out at random on the pay-per-view instead of announcing these in advance. I get why they do it for a couple of the matches, but some of these do not make me want to watch the actual pay-per-view event.
Yeah, definitely not. If you thought wrestling was on the up and up, after you hear some of the teams that are announced, you know it's fake at this point.
Right, yeah.
It's baby yelling, but
it's absolutely overkill. When they try to get a point, get across the point of anything can happen. It's just slap you in the face, breaking kayfabe, some of this stuff when we get moving here. I thought that was funny as we get going. Some news and notes on contracts. As you know, Nash and Hall are coming in, so everybody's getting a little pissy about contracts here in WCW. The Road Warriors actually quit WCW for a moment. They actually never had a full-time contract with the company, but rather a offer sheet. And what an offer sheet is basically WCW agrees to pay the roadies X amount of dollars for every appearance they make. It doesn't mean they're actually contracted to the WCW company at this point, but apparently cooler heads prevailed, and the reason they wanted to quit, Steve, they learned that Hall and Nash were going to make more money than them. These guys are living in the 1980s. Of course, this all gets blown over, and the roadies eventually sign the contract, and they're still with WCW. What good that does, I don't know. Also, Elizabeth might have been a little unhappy with whatever she was making after signing with WCW back in January, and she looked to be out the door earlier this week as well, but they smoothed that over as well, a.k.a. they threw her some extra cash, and Elizabeth's going to stick around and just kind of stand there. What is your take on these WCW paying these guys a little more money to keep them around?
I think WCW should have realized what they had and just cut bait. The roadies look like shit. After that initial excitement of them being back, I mean, really, they've done nothing except look terrible. Elizabeth has done nothing. The appeal's gone. She hasn't amounted to do anything. It's just a waste of money, waste of space, and a waste of everything. So they should have realized what they had and just cut bait. I don't think Vince would have touched them.
It's kind of hilarious that you use the term cut bait, Steve, because they do cut bait on a fish, reportedly anyway. The Shark, or John Tenta, who was earning $250,000 per year. Insane. Talk about being a good Hogan friend. This is what gets you a couple good paychecks in the bank. Making Hogan look good in 1990 was the earthquake. And so here in 1996, the Shark was making $250,000 as an undercard member of the Dungeon of Doom. Now, we know John Tenta sticks around, but I'm not sure if it's on a per-appearance basis, if he took less money because he realized where he was on the card. But at this point, they do cut bait with Shark. So I do agree with you about Roadies and Liz. On paper, those names are amazing. It's great to say we have the Road Warriors and Miss Elizabeth under contract, but giving them more money because they're being pissy about what other people are making, I don't know. I don't know what they're... I don't know. I can't make anything out of it either. And I agree with you. I don't know that anything would have changed had we lost the roadies, had we lost Liz, who kind of just stands there. And I love me some Miss Elizabeth, but really, Steve, that's what she's doing. She's just standing there. And after being in the business as long as she had, you'd think she would catch on a little better. But she has that one face, and sometimes she breaks character and smiles or laughs. But outside of that, that's all we get.
Yeah, it's just a waste of money. What's weird is like people trash Hogan, but shit, look at he's taking care of his boys here. $250,000 for the Shark. I mean, he may not have put anybody over, but hell, he's taken care of some people and gotten them paid quite nicely. So I guess you take the good with the bad, I guess.
Yeah, no wonder Honky Tonk Man was pissed when he couldn't get a contract there. Jeez, oh man.
I can't say I blame him.
We also learn, Steve McMichael is coming out of the announce booth. He's preparing for a wrestling match where he will team with Kevin Green for a tag team match on the June pay-per-view. That'll be, well, it's coming up. And they're already kind of setting the stage there. We'll talk about that, throughout the shows with Ric Flair and what they do with Deborah McMichael and whatnot. There's also talk of Nitro going to 2 hours, which we know will happen by the end of May. Every Monday night, Nitro will go to 2 hours. The idea behind that is TNT would increase its weekly payment to WCW for the second hour, which would make WCW even more profitable. And with the added money, they can acquire even more talent. It would also give them a 1 hour jump on Titan, since the hour would be in place of Thunder in Paradise. What a bummer. Even if 2 hours is overexposure, says DeMeltz, from a wrestling standpoint, from a TNT standpoint, an hour of Nitro would do double the ratings of Thunder in Paradise, which is true.
Yeah, it's smart. I mean, I don't know. It pays to be on the network that owns you.
Thunder in Paradise, I didn't really do a follow-up on it. I didn't really learn a whole lot about it. When that was airing, I didn't really watch it, but I just assumed it was recent. Like it was airing at the same time WCW was airing. I didn't realize that it was already been in syndication. It had already the ship had sailed. There was 22 episodes made, 1 season, and that was it. And they're basically just showing reruns here on TNT leading into Nitro, and they're selling it like it's some big thing. And at the time, I didn't realize it had already aired. It was already off TV and whatever, but it's really just reruns of Thunder in Paradise here, and it's really worthless. And I think I got ratings of Thunder in Paradise before this episode's over. Another piece of news, Lanny Poffo, you guys might know him also as the Genius, is pretty much a sure thing to come in with a Gorgeous George gimmick. Of course, we know Randy Savage went to the indie wrestler Gorgeous George III, who would pop up in WCW later as the Maestro, and purchased the Gorgeous George name outright so that he could give it to brother Lanny and get Lanny on the payroll. Of course, Lanny was on the payroll already, getting paid tremendous money to sit at home. And I think that's supposedly according to Gorgeous George, the female valet of Savage, who he eventually gave her the name. She claims Randy was pissed at Lanny because Lanny was sitting at home and getting out of shape, and he wasn't getting prepared to return to the ring or taking this seriously. She kind of basically called Lanny a mooch. I don't know if that's true or not. Of course, everybody's pointing fingers there, but Lanny Poffo at one point, it's not a secret that Lanny Poffo was pegged to come in, of course, the brother of Randy Savage, to come in and do the Gorgeous George gimmick, which after the Genius, I think he could have pulled it off pretty damn well.
Yeah, he definitely could have. It would have worked just fine. I don't know what to think of Gorgeous George, the female right. Macho Man's girlfriend. She's been saying a lot of things lately that she really hasn't been saying this whole time. I don't know what makes a difference, 10 years later, whatever the case may be. Maybe you're just bored and you've seen all these people doing things online and you want to get a part of the action, so you're just talking, like saying her and Macho was on a drug kick, and that's when Savage told her about screwing Stephanie. And it's like, it seems far-fetched and just ridiculous and a waste of time, so I don't know who to believe. I'm sure...
Well, we do know one thing,
because he never shows up.
Right, and we do know that Savage did go purchase that name for him, so we do know that. And there's got to be a reason why Lanny never shows up on TV, because everybody on Hogan's buddies showed up on TV. They're far worse soft than Lanny Poffo.
Yeah, so it's either one, he never got into the shape that he needed, or maybe, I don't know, like is it Bischoff's call? Like, hey, I don't really want this dude on TV. Everybody's gonna know who it is or what's going on, or.
Everybody should know who all of these people are.
Macho Man's brother.
Well, right.
Yeah, so I'm saying, like, casual fans from the 80s don't even, like, watching WWF may not realize that's Savage's brother. They did now, obviously, but back then they probably didn't even put 2 and 2 together. Nobody really knew. But by 96, 97, there's enough information out there that, okay, that's Savage's brother. So if you try to do this Gorgeous George gimmick, it just may not work due to the fact that everybody knows it's Savage's brother. So why don't you have them together? So maybe they just didn't want to deal with it. I don't know. But Poffo seems to be the type of guy that would stay in shape, at least the Genius anyway. Like, he seems to be always fit and ready to go. I don't know. He's never really gotten overly big to the point where he's lazy or slob or, whatever. He's never gotten huge, He's
right.
always been in pretty good shape.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say much. I think he's been off TV since
I don't know.
Survivor Series 92, so I don't know what's going on with him here in 96, but yeah, it's just interesting. Savage goes out of his way, purchases this rights to this name, and then we never get the Gorgeous George character, which I remember the rumors in the late 90s for that valet, Miss whatever her name is, Stephanie something maybe, I don't remember. Before she took on the name.
Now, I think.
Yeah, that's right. Frankenstein, that's right. Yeah, but before she took on the Gorgeous George name, it was already on the internet in the 90s that Lanny Poffo was coming in. We all know he was under contract, and he was supposed to come in as that Gorgeous George name. So that's not debatable. That's definitely was a thing at one time. Now, the reason why, you're right. We really, truly don't know. The biggest piece of news, Steve, before we get to Nitro, is Brian Pillman suffered an injury. He was thrown 40 feet out of the Humvee, his Hummer he was driving. He was driving in it on the April 15th. And DeMelt says, as of press time and the Observer, Pillman was hospitalized in Cincinnati with multiple fractures and lacerations. Pillman, 33 at the time, ran off the road on Kentucky Route 338 and struck a tree stump, then went across the roadway into a field where his Hummer overturned and he was thrown 40 feet from the vehicle, according to 3 witnesses who estimated his driving speed at 60 to 70 miles an hour in a 45 mile per hour zone. Pillman was listed in critical condition on the 16th of April, but his condition was said not to be life-threatening at that point, and there was no speculation about his status as far as wrestling and his wrestling career. There was no other details available as of press time, and DeMelt says from a wrestling career standpoint, the timing of this injury couldn't have been worse. Pillman's contract with WCW expired this week, the same week as this injury, and there was dialogue going on regarding a new deal, but this will no doubt make WCW a lot more skeptical. Pillman had also reached an agreement with ECW where he would work for the group, provided he didn't reach a deal with the WWF or WCW, including building to a match with Shane Douglas at the ECW arena, which obviously would have to be on hold as well at this point. So a little more on Pillman later in the show, but this is terrible, terrible accident.
Yeah, we didn't know it at this point, but this was pretty much the downfall of his career. This was it. It's what caused it. I mean, we all know, according from what I've heard, I think it maybe even been his DVD and just reading the Observer, is he constantly came back early from injuries and he just kept on re-injuring his leg and re-injuring his foot and things like that. It never fully healed. I'm assuming that's what got him addicted to the painkillers or whatever it is. And then I don't think that's what killed him. I think he had a heart attack or something. I don't know. I can't remember. It wasn't anything drug related from what I recall, but it just seems like I think Jim Ross summed it up perfect that he died of a broken heart because he basically had the wrestling world in the palm of his hands there for a little bit and with this gimmick. And he was at the peak of being able to make an insane amount of money. And then this car accident happened and it basically robbed us of what Brian Pillman could have been. I would have loved to have seen a healthy Brian Pillman in the WWF machine just to see what we could get. But it kind of just started, stopped, started. You know, it doesn't never really take off. So
yeah, and here you have to think about it too. Remember Pillman's that whole build up, the Pillman angle, the crazy Pillman was really getting bigger and bigger. And then Hogan tried to put the kibosh on it by leg dropping him, so to speak, in so many words. But Pillman found a way out of the Doomsday Cage match so that wouldn't happen. Very wise of Brian Pillman to do that. But here's the kicker. Hogan's gone after this week. What Brian Pillman could have done had he stayed with the company, stayed healthy for the next few months, he really could have gotten himself over without Hogan trying to squash that heat.
Yeah, definitely could have. And he's always seemed like a ahead of the curve, smart individual when it comes to the business. We talked about him on the Grenade when he came in, like how his promos were really good. And I never really knew Pillman to be a good talker like that and that back then. But his promos always delivered and he just seemed intelligent and kind of knew where he wanted to go and what he wanted to do. And obviously he has his hands all over this gimmick. It's definitely, I'm sure it's him and Bischoff talking and maybe Sullivan. I don't know. I know Bischoff takes a lot of credit for some of this stuff. They like to work the boys, which makes no sense, but you can tell he's smart. It's just his body couldn't hold up, and that's unfortunate.
We kick off WCW Monday Nitro for April 15th. We're in Charleston, West Virginia, in front of 8,040 fans. That's 6,381 paid. That's maybe the highest number paid so far, I think, for a Nitro. And what makes it even crazier, Steve? DeMelt says these numbers are phenomenal numbers considering there was a tornado watch in town at the time of the show. And if you didn't know it going into the show, the announcers let you know it pretty much every 5 minutes throughout the course of the show that there's tornado warnings, tornado watches, depending on who's talking on the commentary at that time. But they do play that up, and that's a pretty damn good draw.
Yeah, for sure. Well, didn't they have a power outage once on a Nitro?
Briefly,
did their power go out?
During a tag match. No, that was Nitro.
No, that's when they blamed Raw for doing it.
Right.
Or Vince for doing it.
And then Bischoff had to apologize for making the joke.
He got neutered, but yeah. No, it sounds like they're making fun of themselves, you know. Hey, guys, there's a lot of weather. We're gonna
which
make
is
it, though.
kind of funny considering what happens next month in the WWF. Must have been a bad
That's what
tornado.
I thought they were doing.
Season.
They was making fun of Vince. I thought they was making fun of Vince for having his power go out, but obviously that hasn't happened yet. So,
right. So
crazy weather in '96, man.
That's what I said. Must have been hell of a tornado weather.
Ice storm, right?
Yeah.
Well, the ice storm that previous winter, we had, so we had the extremes all over the place.
And since there was no episode on April 8th, we're coming back from April 1st was the last Nitro, where Hogan and the Booty Man promised a special surprise rematch against Arn Anderson and Kevin Sullivan. Raw, this is the week that it starts, by the way, Steve. Raw decides they're going to start getting a jump on Nitro. They're going to start airing on USA at 8:57. No more 9 p.m. It's 8:57. So, since Ted Turner owns TNT, and since Ted Turner owns WCW, Nitro now starts at 8:56. How petty. A minute earlier. Just pettiness on both sides as they try to get the jump on one another. I don't even know why Raw didn't just go back to 9 at that point. Like, why even bother trying? We do kick off the show. It was supposed to be that match I mentioned, Hogan and Booty versus Anderson and Kevin Sullivan. There's no Booty Man here. It's not really explained other than Beefcake is quote-unquote injured. I don't even know if that's a legit injury or not. So the special stipulation match winds up being a handicap match, Steve. It's Hulk Hogan taking on Arn Anderson and Kevin Sullivan. They're accompanied to the ring by Woman, Miss Elizabeth, and Jimmy Hart. And, we've seen Hogan take on like 50 people at a time, so this should be a cakewalk, I thought, going into this. Arn and Sullivan, just two guys versus Hulk Hogan?
That's right. Should be pretty easy, right?
We'll see what happens here as Booty is injured, as they note, as the heels attack the Hulkster. He fights both guys off at once. Of course he does. Hogan does his crappy figure four on Kevin Sullivan's little legs. Looks absolutely stupid again. Hogan does the figure four the wrong way on Arn Anderson, that old Shawn Michaels way. You remember that match where Shawn put it on with the leg underneath instead of over top of the other leg? And then he tried to sell it as a new finisher? Well, Hogan does it here way back. So Hogan was doing things before they were cool. Hogan wraps Arn's leg underneath. He put it on the improper way. I'll put it that way. And he locks Arn Anderson in this terrible looking figure four as well. As Kimberly, the booty babe, makes her way down to ringside, even though there's no beefcake out here. So clearly Hogan trying to make her the new Elizabeth for his group. Hogan just no-selling both men at the same time during the match. Hogan even no-sells a chair shot from Kevin Sullivan. Takes the chair and gives it back to both guys. It's apparently no disqualification, I noted at this point, but Randy Anderson is counting. So there may be no DQs because of all these chair shots, but apparently there's countouts. None of this makes any sense to me. The heels do finally take over control. They double team Hogan on the floor. Jimmy Hart even gets in a few cheap shots, and a spike pile driver gets countered as Hulk catapults Arn into Sullivan, who was standing on the ropes. And then the big leg drop to Sullivan, and Hogan gets the win. This is the big rivalry rematch, Steve. Hogan gets the win on two guys in 4 minutes and 20 seconds. My comment for this match was, what ass?
At this point, like, it's just whatever. I mean, we can bag on Hogan. We can do whatever we want. It's just a new week doing the same thing that we've seen over and over and over again.
I'm going to be sad when we can't.
I'm glad he's gone after this.
Oh, thank God. Yes, absolutely. The only sad part about this is people, I think that's the one big feedback we get on this show, is they love our take on Hulk Hogan and how we dissect the nonsense that is Hulk Hogan and his booking and his logic and just the insanity that everybody was allowing this to happen. I also wrote at the end of this match, when I got done watching this match, Hulk Hogan should be embarrassed. His offense is just atrocious at this point. He's not putting on figure fours properly. He's not connecting with his punches. He's missing by a good half a foot. I mean, you can be old. He's not even old here, Steve, but you could be old. You still should be able to. I'm pretty sure if Jerry Lawler got in the ring right now, he could throw one of those Jerry Lawler punches. It's not like you're taking a bump or doing anything fancy here. It just looks like shit. It's like he doesn't care. And then post-match, Hogan is supposed to get, this is the stipulation that Beefcake must have implemented, Hogan gets 5 minutes with a manager of his choosing. So initially Hogan grabs Woman. He's going to beat the hell out of Woman. But then he sees Liz and he grabs Liz instead. And like, I really believe that one, Steve. So finally, he releases both ladies and he chooses Jimmy Hart. Jimmy Hart tries the old Memphis powder trick to the eyes of Hogan, but Hogan blocks it. He rips Jimmy Hart's shirt off and lands an atomic drop at the big boot. But here comes the Giant. And it's choke slam time, Steve. But Hogan no-sells it. Jumps up, hulks up. Fuck you, Giant. Fuck you and your finisher. And then Hogan with the big boot and the body slam to the Giant. But Mean Gene trying to come in. Now, this was silly nonsense. It made no sense. Mean Gene's trying to come in for a promo while Hogan's in the middle of slamming the Giant. So when Hogan turns around, he picks up Mean Gene. He's going to slam Mean Gene. He's in the moment, Steve. He's going to slam Mean Gene. But nope. He realizes who it is. He lets Gene down. Because Gene would have been, my lawyers are going to have a field day with this, Hulkster. Yeah, so the Giant rolls out of the ring. He escapes. So in the matter of 6-7 minutes, he's killed Arn Anderson. He's killed Kevin Sullivan. He's beat up Jimmy Hart. He's no-sold the choke slam, which comes into play later. Wait till we get to that. And he slams the Giant like a bitch and clears out WCW and cuts this promo. This is a hell of a fucking promo, given what happens afterwards. Hogan cuts this promo. Thank God there were mic issues, by the way, so we didn't have to hear the whole thing. But basically, Hulk says that Hulkamania is back on a roll, brother. I wrote, it is? Because this, as we've already mentioned, is the end of Hulk Hogan for months. He's gone to go make a movie and do whatever he does until he returns. What is that? Bash at the Beach. And he made sure to bury everyone on his way out. Absolutely fucking garbage. And I know you're like, well, we say this every week. This is a new height. You're leaving. This is your last fucking night in the company, and you booked yourself to beat everybody, and then you cut a promo saying that Hulkamania is back on track. Fucking ridiculous, Steve.
I think he pinned Kevin Sullivan, who's nothing at this point. I don't even care. Arn wasn't even really involved with much of anything. He did the catapult and then got the hell out of the ring. I mean, he got the shitty figure four put on him. So, I mean, Arn didn't really lose nothing in this one. Really, the biggest loser in all of this was the Giant. It's unfortunate he did that to the Giant. The match itself, I don't really care. It doesn't bother me at all. I mean, you squashed the whole Dungeon of Doom and the Four Horsemen and the Doomsday match at this point. Who cares if you do it on TV for two of them that mean nothing? Arn's well past meaningful anything, and it's kind of be expected after you pin Hogan or beat Hogan twice. I mean, I don't know what you expect out of that, but I feel bad for the Giant because he shouldn't have kicked out of the choke slam. The Giant shouldn't even have been involved in this. I can't say the Giant's been protected.
You know this was Hogan working the Giant in there so he could get one last bitch slap on him before he's on the way out. He had to make sure he got over on the Giant as well. Like you said, it made no sense. He had no business being in there. I think that was just another last-minute write-in.
I mean, I understand where you're coming from. I can see why anybody would be upset seeing this, but I feel like, and this is going to be weird, it's going to sound bad, but WCW actually did an excellent job of just pivoting away from Hogan and pretty much ignoring anything that's happened last week.
But you shouldn't have to do that. Well, not that's my point. If you know he's on the way out, you got to put your foot down. I don't even care that he won that match. That wasn't the worst part of that. And I agree with you. The Giant thing is absolutely the worst part of it.
The point is you made this monster. So if you're going to get pissed, then you shouldn't have to do it. They have to do it because they put themselves in the situation. Do you think this is a little bit of Bischoff or even Kevin Sullivan, whoever's booking and whatever? Do you think this is a little bit of them going, do whatever you want to do tonight because we know you're leaving. Just do whatever the fuck you want to do it so we can just keep going. It feels that way. I doubt that's Bischoff. There's no way it's Bischoff. I can see Sullivan saying, what do you want? Do it. Get the hell out of here. I'm done. Right. And at some point, Sullivan, it's probably happened maybe 6 months prior to this. He's done dealing with Hogan. He probably doesn't even book anything for Hogan. Hogan comes in and says, I want to do this, this, and this with this, this, and this, and I'm done. Okay, cool. Now let's book the rest of the show. And that's kind of how it feels. I don't see how Bischoff can say anything. Because if he's letting this go on the entire run of Nitro, how the hell are you going to wait till the last day that he's there to try to say something to stick up against him? Like, you look like shit at that point. So you should have done this 6 months ago or 3 months ago. So I get it. I understand the hostility and why it's shit. But at the same time, it's bad business. Monster. It's just bad business for the rest of the roster. I agree. I'm not knocking. I'm not disagreeing with that. But right. It's just only going to get worse at this point. I mean, if you're a name and you're somebody and you come into this company and you see what Hulk Hogan gets away with, and then all of a sudden you see what the new guys get away with, like Hall and Nash, and then all of a sudden here comes more guys and more guys. That's a recipe for disaster. You're setting yourself up for absolute failure when those guys
which
are
we
running
find out
the show.
ultimately at the end of the day.
That is ultimately what happened, and it all started with Hulk Hogan, and I don't even necessarily blame Hogan. If somebody's gonna give you that leeway, I'm gonna take advantage of it. I mean, I'm gonna try and get myself as much money as I can. I'm gonna be on top. I deserve to be on top in my mind. If I'm Hogan, that's how I'm thinking. So I'm gonna do everything I can to stay there.
I just argue Hogan should know better than he does know better than this. I mean, when he was leaving to make movies, he had Earthquake take him out. He knew that there was more money to be made if he was taken out and made the return. Yeah. It's just here he's so paranoid about his spot or being over that he just won't let this die. I got to kill people every week on Nitro, as many as possible.
Yeah, and it's the monster that's been created.
Well, there's more on it later in the show.
I will give, like I said, I will give WCW credit. They did a nice job of basically ignoring
that he existed.
What happened
right
in the first time that any of this happened. I mean, if you just take out the Hogan stuff from the April 1st show and the April 15th show and just act like it never happened, because that's what WCW does, it's actually not bad. So they do a good job of just ignoring it and act like it didn't happen, and they do their best to build up the Giant and try to make him recover. But let's be honest, it's Hogan. What finisher hasn't he kicked out of? Is it really a huge deal that he kicked out of the choke slam?
I didn't like it, and I'll tell you why when we get to the end of the show, because it makes everybody else look like a bitch at the end of the show.
Well, yeah, but at the same time, it's Hogan. Hogan's different than everybody else, right?
If you say so. I don't know. Just didn't see the necessity for the pop-up, but we'll continue on with Nitro because we got more on that situation later. The street fight, it's another street fight, Steve. It's Public Enemy and the Nasty Boys for the umpteenth time now. The Nasty smashed the Public Enemy during the entrance with plunder, baby. You know what plunder is? It's the weapons, baby. Dr. Rule coined the term plunder. Plundering, if you will. Garbage cans, lots of garbage cans, Steve. Garbage can lids. It's like they couldn't find any other weapons. So it's just garbage cans galore, stiff shots by both teams. We get that split screen fun they love to do. I feel like they only started these street fights so they can use these split screens. I feel like that's why they do this. Chairs are even used in this match. Rocco Rock gets thrown through a table. Brian Knobbs runs the ropes into a Rocco chair shot into the back. Johnny Grunge then beats on Knobbs in the ring with a chair. Johnny Grunge goes up top, misses a top rope. I think it was a leg drop, not really sure. And he winds up going through the table, and Knobbs rolls out of the way off the table. Grunge goes through it. Knobbs makes the cover while Sags grabs Rocco Rock to keep him from breaking up the cover. And Knobbs gets the win on Johnny Grunge, 9 minutes and 14 seconds. I wrote, it was a pretty fun garbage match until everyone blew up, basically, last couple of minutes of the match. And I also noted, can Public Enemy ever get a win? At least on Nitro. I'm sure they've won some matches at Disney and maybe on Saturday night, but I don't think they've gotten a straight up 1, 2, 3 here on Nitro yet.
This was terrible. I don't like these matches. It's
okay.
lazy. Huh?
I thought it was fun for a garbage match, but then they got really blown up, and then it was shit for what it was.
I wasn't a fan. Just very boring. I don't like any of these guys. I don't mind Public Enemy and ECW. They were ahead of the time and some really, really tremendous promos. But here, they don't know how to work. And there's a lot of teams in WCW that can work, and they can't work a normal match. We'll see that next week when they go against American Males.
Yeah, they're definitely out of their element.
They do nothing for me.
Right.
And then the Nasty Boys are just crazy shits who I can't stand. So,
I feel like the day they signed
on my TV, the better I am.
I feel like the day the Nasty Boys signed with the WWF, they never gave a shit ever again. I never liked them at all in the WWF, and I mean I enjoyed their stuff with the Steiners, but it's such a small piece of their history there in the NWA WCW. But other than that, I've never been a giant Nasty Boys fan. I tried to get behind their babyface turn in the WWF, but I mean they weren't there very much longer after that, so it's really irrelevant. But definitely not a fan of either team here. And it's kind of shocking to me. I haven't watched this stuff, like really hardcore watched it in many, many years. Maybe not ever, as far as paying close attention to everything. I didn't realize how bad Public Enemy were in these wrestling matches, even the street fight, but these wrestling matches in WCW until we went back now and started watching them. I'm getting a whole new look at the Public Enemy in the WCW that I didn't take that away, I guess, when we were watching it live back in the day. I never really noticed it, I suppose.
I didn't watch ECW. I didn't have it in my area. at least that I know of. So I never knew what Public Enemy was. Now I've gone back and I've pretty much seen every ECW episode you can see. And what makes Public Enemy great is being able them to be able to tell the stories that they want to tell with their promos. And then you get in there and you put them in you can give them a garbage match. There's no problem with that. It's just when there's blood feud or there's a real something they can sink their teeth in that you can get up behind with the promos and things, that's what makes them work. You can ignore the in-ring when the promos are so good, but here they don't get any promo time. The matches are shit because they're very lazy. Everything just seems fake, and you're just walking around hitting each other in the head with a trash can lid. And then you go home, and it's just like it's just very lackluster and not very good. So I don't want to trash the Public Enemy. I love their ECW run, but as far as WCW and everywhere else, it's just utter garbage.
Yeah, my first exposure to Public Enemy outside of the Aftermath, just reading about them, looking at pictures and going, holy shit, this song, because they really put them over as the next coming of tag team wrestling. And you bought it. If you were an Aftermag fan, you bought it. You bought into the hype of all these guys. So my first look at Public Enemy is really, I bought a couple tapes in late 95 from earlier in 95 in the ECW arena. Obviously they were main eventing and tables matches and things. So I was like, something new. I mean, it was exciting. Holy shit. They're going through double tables and things like that. So it was pretty awesome. But again, they were in the element. Here they are out of the element. And so really getting to see Public Enemy week to week, I didn't see that until they came to WCW, because I don't think I got ECW locally until around March or April of 96 here. So they were already gone from ECW by the time I had the opportunity to watch the show weekly. And so this is what we get. And post-match, after the match, Brian Knobbs gets sent off the apron into the rail. Nice bump by Knobbs here. The only good thing he's been doing lately is taking that bump off the apron into the guardrail. Sags gets laid out on the table outside as Rocco Rock hits the ropes and does a somersault plancha over the top rope into Johnny Grunge, who's standing on the apron. And both guys put Sags through the table. I can't believe the Nasties actually took the move this time. As Sags goes through the table, they coined the term Public Enemy Sandwich, which sounded stupid, but I wrote it down anyway. They try to get it over. So both Public Enemy send Sags crashing through the table to end the segment. So I guess that's how they're supposed to get their heat back. Job every week and then put somebody through a table.
I guess. Doesn't work for me anyway.
No, it's like I said, man, it's been interesting going back and then having to watch all of this again. Just different takes on certain people and certain stories and certain things. We go back to the ring. Macho Man and Randy Savage take on Earl Robert Eaton with Jeeves with the J or Jeeves with the G. They change it every week. Randy Savage is dominant in this one. We even see Fred Flintstone in the crowd for whatever reason. As the match goes on, Bobby Eaton begins to mock the style of Ric Flair to upset the Macho Man, which was not a smart idea. It's funny to see Bobby Eaton try to put on a character, though, with woos and strutting around the ring, even locks in the figure four, and for a nice added touch, he points and shows off a Four Horsemen t-shirt to Randy Savage while in the figure four. I wrote LOL. I like that. I mean, you don't see Bobby really use all of this charismatic type, offense and things in the ring. So it was funny seeing Bobby with a personality here. As Savage gets wound up, he turns the figure four over. He goes up top, but Jeeves yanks the Macho Man off to the floor. Savage goes after Jeeves and grabs his wig. Yanks poor Jeeves' wig off, and Jeeves goes running to the back. Bobby Eaton comes out charging at Savage and takes the big patented backdrop to Bobby Eaton on the concrete in the aisleway. I can't believe Eaton is still taking this move here in 1996. Back to the ring, Savage with the flying elbow drop. Ends this one in just a matter of 3 minutes and 56 seconds, but it doesn't end there. The Macho Man wants to do it again. Referee Randy Anderson steps in between and Savage tosses him. Alex Wright, Bobby Walker, oh, poor Bobby Walker, even Jim Duggan try to stop Savage, but he jumps over them. And another big elbow drop to Bobby Eaton, who's now probably regretting mocking the Nature Boy. Savage then is handcuffed by Doug Dillinger, but his babyface buddies take him away. So security is handcuffing Randy Savage, and then like Jim Duggan and Alex Wright are escorting him out. It was a bit silly there, but other than that, Savage showed good intensity here. I love that they implemented all of this Ric Flair stuff into the match.
Yeah, they did a good job of pushing the Flair feud in the middle of this match with Eaton doing what he did. Pretty good stuff. it would have been awesome to see these two go at it in '89 or just Eaton in his prime with Savage. That'd have been one hell of a match. So I was cool with this one. It wasn't bad, and it did what it was supposed to do. It got the job done.
Yeah, it's just sad to think, we over the grenade where we're finishing up, we saw Eaton just now wrestling Ric Flair for the World Heavyweight title on TV, and fast forward just a few years later, and here he is doing a 4-minute job to Randy Savage here. It's unfortunate how far down the totem pole Eaton has traveled, and a lot of that, I'm sure, is just due to wear and tear on the craziness that he took in the ring all those years.
Yeah, and his look's going to set him back forever. It's unfortunate.
Well, that's true.
That's
he never had the best look, but yeah, at this point, yeah. Poor Bobby.
Yeah, poor Bobby.
Tag team title match. Sting and Lex Luger taking on the Giant and Ric Flair, come to the ring by Woman and Leather Liz. Ric Flair, on his way down, he sees Deborah McMichael in the crowd again. What is she doing in the crowd? Obviously, angle alert there. Makes no sense otherwise. Mongo asks Eric Bischoff to explain to him how the two titles work in this match, because Ric Flair is champion and the tag team champions are champion, and even Luger's a TV champion. But here, it's just a tag team title match, Steve, this week. And Mongo wants to know how this works. Eric Bischoff responds, real simple. A tag match is for the tag titles. That's how he says it. I might have get a little irritated there with Mongo. I thought it was kind of funny.
Maybe he's thinking of next week, huh?
He might be. He may already know the plans. I don't know. Sting and Flair start the match. Sting, of course, presses Flair in the air because it wouldn't be a Sting and Flair match if he didn't. The Giant turns his back to the Stinger, and he gets drop kicked off the apron for that. Can't turn your back on the Stinger, Giant. And then Sting tosses Flair out onto the Giant, but Giant catches Flair and throws him back in the ring, which kind of pisses the Nature Boy off. And now Ric Flair gets pressed again, this time by Lex Luger, out of the ring onto the Giant, who catches him again and throws Flair back in the ring again. Flair gets pissed off at the Giant. He runs outside the ring, chops him. I wrote LOL. It was funny. I thought it was hilarious. Giant it's almost like a midget comedy spot. Giant's catching him, throwing him back in the ring. Flair's getting beat up, and he runs outside just out of the heat of the moment. He chops the Giant and then runs up the aisle away because the Giant is not happy with the Nature Boy. But the heels do finally make up, and eventually they get the heat on Lex Luger. We see the figure 4 leg lock on Lex. But Flair is caught using the ropes and has to break the hold. The Giant walks across Lex's chest, and Flair up top, but he gets pressed off by the total package. And then we see the hot tag to Sting, who goes wild on Ric Flair. The Flair flip into the corner sees Flair knock the cameraman off the apron. And then Stinger with a top rope superplex, because again, it wouldn't be a Sting Flair match if there wasn't a top rope superplex. Sting then goes for the Scorpion on the Nature Boy, but the referee gets tied up with Miss Elizabeth, and Woman comes in with coffee again. And I guess because coffee is better than a shoe now, Steve. And of course, Hogan's probably trademarked that at this point, so they can't use the shoe in a non-Hogan match. Lex comes in over to stop Woman from throwing the coffee, but she throws it anyway at Lex Luger, but he ducks, and the coffee hits Sting in the face. Nick Patrick actually sees the coffee throw and calls for the disqualification in 12 minutes and 47 seconds. Did you ever think when you were watching wrestling that it would come to this, a disqualification for throwing coffee? And I'm not mocking the fact that burning hot coffee in your face wouldn't hurt. It's just silly to write these things. So it's a DQ win for the tag team champions, 12 minutes and 47 seconds before we get to the post-match shenanigans. What was your take on the actual match?
The match was pretty good. It's your typical, like, at this point, Flair, all he's doing is taking press slams and suplexes, and nobody's selling anything from him. Like, nobody at all sells for Ric Flair except Randy Savage. He's the only guy that sells for him. So Flair's your world champion. He looks like a total bitch, no matter who's in the ring, unless it's Macho Man. So it's not very good booking. It's very, very ridiculous, and I'm surprised Flair goes for it. I mean, he's just at the point where he doesn't give a shit. It feels like,
and that's clear. It's Ric Flair's decision too. But you see a lot of the comedy stuff he works in. Like he wants to look like a jackass. I guess he's just enjoying himself. I don't know. I agree with you.
It's weird to see. I know Ric Flair always liked to sell and get guys over, but at the end of the day, he never looked weak in doing it. I mean, he made up for it and was able to get control. Now it's just like he's relying on the women to do everything, and like it's just very terrible. And I think I have a note of it for next week, so I'll save it for the next next Nitro that we review in a little bit here.
Okay.
Before I get to the comment, but it's just it's your typical WCW Nitro main event where there's no finish, there's no nothing. It's just let's get 4 big names in the ring together so we can pop a rating and beat WWF. That's their primary focus. It's not to put on a good wrestling show. It's not to get anything over, get anything relevant, or do anything of substance or of importance. It's just to pop a rating. That's their whole business, and that's what they want to do, and that's what they care about. And that's another thing that you can chalk down in the book of what causes the company to go out of business. There's no longevity. There's no
continuity,
long-term vision,
long-term booking. Right.
It's just week to week. It's just week to week. What do week to week to pop a rating, and that's no way to run a wrestling company.
And after the match, of course, Sting gets the coffee in the face, and Lex Luger bends down to check on him. So the Giant is in the ring, and it's a choke slam to Lex Luger and a choke slam to Sting. And unlike Hulk Hogan, they stay down. Again, that was my big problem here. As Ric Flair covers both Sting and Luger and gets mock 3 counts on both guys. He's beaten both guys here now, at least according to Flair's mind. And so that was my big issue here. The takeaway here was, so if he choke slams Hulk Hogan, okay, doesn't do anything. But Sting and Luger, who are now basically, besides Savage, your de facto main eventers, it kills them. So I didn't like that at all. I thought that made them look like bitches, especially with Hogan knowing he's out, he's gone. Like, it was unnecessary. And I agree with you earlier, it made no sense. It felt like Hogan came in that day and wrote that little Giant spot into, what if he came out too, brother? Let's just do that too.
The only thing I can say about the choke slams on these two is they just went through a 13-minute match, whereas Hogan didn't take anything. So I guess you can chalk it up to that for why they're selling it. It's the end of a long match, and then they got their ass kicked. Plus, Sting's recovering from some coffee, man. You know how dangerous that is.
That could be, yeah. Me and my cousins and my brother, we always made fun of that growing up, the old salt to the eyes. You remember those days where somebody would take salt to the eyes, take the back bump, and then they'd be knocked out cold instead of selling the fucking eyes? It happened all the time. The powder to the face. Yeah. Oh, anybody. Yeah. Everybody. It wasn't just one guy. Everybody did it.
That and when the dude comes off the top rope, the partner comes off the top rope and hits like a double axe handle, they're dead.
That's it.
And they get beat. It's one of those things you just chalk up to wrestling.
And then, of course, we close this show. Comedy, quote unquote comedy, ensues when Bobby Heenan gets himself handcuffed. A little bit of revenge for his April Fool's joke, I suppose, here. Let's see what DeMeltz had to say about the Hulkster here on his final night with the company for a few months. DeMeltz says, coming off the April 1st show where Hogan and the Booty Man were booed out of Cleveland, Ohio, the talks once again surfaced to turn the Hulkster heel. Hogan sent word that he had a movie deal that would take him out of action until August, and plans were made for him to do the serious injury angle on tonight's April 15th show, and for him to be written out of plans. Well, that makes sense. That's how you do things in wrestling. There was a lot of internal belief that using him every Monday night was a situation that would turn into diminishing or lack of returns, and to use him on occasion as a special feature instead, which would have been a good idea. Anyway, Hogan came into the show at the 11th hour and changed his mind. There would be no more injury angle. And he decided against it. Instead, not only would he win a handicap match, but then he would pop up from a Giant chokeslam and then slam the Giant and ran him off as well. This only served to make Sting and Lex Luger look that much weaker, since later in the show they had to take the Giant's chokeslam and lay there for several minutes. So I kind of agree with DeMeltz here this week. And once again, Hulk Hogan agreeing to whatever you tell him until he gets to the show, and he rewrites the entire script. He was Vince McMahon before Vince McMahon was cool.
That's where Vince got it from. I mean, it's ridiculous. But at least we don't have to worry about it no more.
At least for a while.
A few months.
And it'll be different, too, when he gets back. It'll be completely different. Although he will be all over the TV, but it'll be different. Segment
anyway.
For a little bit, yeah. I was going to say. Segment of the night, Steve. Was it the asshole Hogan? One last time, a big middle finger to WCW corporate, the fans, and the wrestlers in general? Was it the street fight match, which you already said you weren't a big fan of? I think you're probably leaning towards the main event tag team title match, or just watching Randy Savage and Bobby Eaton out there for a few minutes.
I'm going to go with the main event. It was a good match. The ending, and I guess the ending was needed to get the Giant back over at the expense of Luger and Sting. So I thought they did a good job of that. And like I said, if you just ignore what Hogan did and just act like it never happened, I know it's hard to do that because you see it. But at the end of the day, if you just take it all out and just ignore it, it makes sense. And the Giant was fine to me. I mean, he hasn't been booked worth a shit anyway, to be honest. I mean, you have a dude coming out there where talking about getting his feelings and his emotions worked over by Hogan like that. It's hard for me to get that out of my mind. A big 7'4" guy talking about his feelings and emotions. I know he has them obviously, but I don't care to hear that shit.
Well, he was supposed to be a monster. Anyway. A monster has no feelings, or at least we're not exactly. We don't perceive them to. I think that promo did it for me as well with the Giant, but also seeing him there typing on CompuServe and raising his eyebrows to the fans' questions. Yeah. That was I don't know who booked that segment, but geez, oh man.
I can see if he was built up as this unbeatable monster, and like if they did nothing to him, like we've seen after Halloween Havoc, I'd have been upset. Like, okay, this is ridiculous. You killed this guy, but he's been looked like shit ever since. So, I mean, that's what happens when you're with Hogan. He's doing the complete opposite of how you get a big monster over. I mean, Earthquake looked like $1 million after the Brother Love show, and they got a nice little run out of it. This one, like, he's totally forgotten what works. The Giant is the one that is paying for it, which is unfortunate.
Well, at least things are on the upswing for the Giant moving forward, at least for the short term. And I'm going to go with you, I think, but de facto segment of the night has to be the World Tag Team title match at the end of the show. I didn't really care for much of the rest of the show. It was either just there or it was Hulk Hogan. So I absolutely had to go with the tag team title match as well. There was enough there that resembled a wrestling match that I was okay with it, and I liked the fun stuff between Flair and the Giant, the comedy spot, and just it was okay. As we move on to WWF news, and Goldust. It's reported that Dustin Runnels suffered a torn MCL in his knee on April 13th in Dusseldorf, Germany, in a match against Razor Ramon, and was rushed to Birmingham, Alabama to be examined by the world-renowned orthopedic Dr. James Andrews. Andrews said the injury couldn't be fixed through arthroscopic surgery, but was such that Runnels could rehabilitate without undergoing major surgery. That would keep him out of action for several months. Goldust is expected to work the pay-per-view match, however, although he won't be at 100% and will have to baby his knee for a while. He's expected to take some time off. How much isn't exactly clear after the pay-per-view match, so that while he may do angles at the TV tapings, he isn't expected to wrestle at the TV tapings upcoming anyway. So Goldust now suffers an injury. Big bummer there as he's coming off that Roddy Piper match at WrestleMania. I felt like they could have really capitalized something more with him here. And of course, we know what we get with that Warrior match when we get to the pay-per-view.
Not looking forward to that, but yeah, it's unfortunate. He was finally starting to get over to a whole new level, and injuries, man. I guess it's life, right?
The good news here is they taped all these Raws back on April 1st before the injury, so we get a ton of Goldust right now. We don't realize he's out yet anyway.
Yeah, that's good. You get some really good Goldust.
Just some real quick news and notes here. Billy Gunn, who's been out since the beginning of the year, he'll return in mid-May from his knee injury. We learned that Sable is actually Rena Marrow, the wife of the Wild Man, Mark Marrow. Mr. Perfect reportedly returning to wrestle later this year versus Shawn Michaels. Of course, that doesn't happen, so I won't tease you guys for very long there. Also, Bam Bam Bigelow is upset with the WWF, claiming he was promised an unconditional release, provided he put Goldust over at Survivor Series, but then when he got his release, it was conditional on him not working for WCW, which was where he was hoping to go. He's contractually free to go anywhere but WCW until October. So Bammer getting screwed there by the WWF on the way out the door. Also, on the April 15th show in Memphis, which happened in the Mid-South Coliseum the same night as this Raw, it saw a boost of nearly 1,200 extra fans with Jerry Lawler and Jeff Jarrett doing a 60-minute draw for the Unified World title in Jarrett's first match back since being out a few months after a serious back injury at the hands of Ahmed Johnson. So Jarrett is back. That's why I noted this here, but he's not back with the WWF. And as far as stories regarding Brian Christopher in the WWF, and I'd always pondered this myself, Steve, when I watched Brian. Obviously, he was all over the Aftermags too in the early 90s, but I got to see a lot of Brian. I started getting the USWA again in 94. Saw him all through 95. Here we are in 96. And I ask myself all the time, he was one of the best workers down there in Memphis. Why is he not getting called? Why is he not getting a job with the WWF? And then I would always tell myself, well, he's small. And that's probably why. And it probably was why. But it's kind of funny here because DeMeltz notes that Christopher is actually under contract to the WWF and has been since late 94. Think about how long it was before Brian actually finally pops up in the WWF. So they were wise enough to keep him under contract, but also they knew they had nothing for him, but they kept him from jumping to WCW or wherever else he may have went. WWE has no imminent plans for Brian at this time, although he is under contract. I thought that was interesting. I'd never heard that before. So I wanted to note that Brian Christopher under contract here all the way, apparently going back to 94.
Yeah, quite the run. If you think about it. Like from 94 all the way till he ended, whenever that was. But
yeah, can't imagine what the guarantees
Vince was smart
were
when it came to that. And
back in those the bad days. But yeah, Vince
right,
locked him
yeah,
up.
I mean,
that was way before Nitro, so it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and you know, it was nice back in the day. You know, you had the Smoky Mountain, and you got on your good side with Cornette, so you got those guys. He's always buddy with Paul Lee and taking his ideas and probably paying him money and taking some of his guys, but not like totally killing him like Bischoff tries to do. So he had that talent pool, and then obviously with Lawler, he had Memphis stuff. So Vince was smart as far as getting little companies to be a minor league system for him, so to speak.
It is funny how many of these last surviving, I don't know you want to call them territories, but indies, the higher up indies, were working with Vince. Smoky Mountain and USW, not so much behind the scenes. Obviously, they were trading talent, doing crossover shows and things like that. But ECW, we didn't learn until years later that Paul E was on Vince's payroll. I can't remember what the figure Jim Ross gave on his podcast recently, how much Paul E was getting paid per month just to keep ECW afloat. It was insane. And Vince was just, here you go. Keep running your shows, Paul. It's crazy. As we kick off.
I didn't want to go to WCW.
Well, no, he wanted to keep them afloat. He wanted to keep that
gravy train going.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Unfortunately, if the pay scale got too big and Paulie had to call it quits, as everyone knows, and Vince bought him out. Took all that. As we kick off WWF Monday Night Raw for April 15th, taped back on the 1st of April, back in San Bernardino after the last pay-per-view. Now, the new start time, Steve, 8:57. And we get the intro with the tornado, and now it's changed from that gray to a red or an orange, whatever the hell you want to call this color. So they've changed their opening logo again. As we head to the ring with Wild Man Mark Marrow, now accompanied by Sable. And this is the match we were kind of hinting at when we were talking about who will we have put him in his debut match against instead of Isaac Yankem, a 7-foot guy. We both kind of pondered maybe Leif Cassidy or Marty Jannetty. And here we get Mark Marrow taking on Leif Cassidy with Marty Jannetty. And it's back and forth early on in the ring. World Tour of Arm Drags here is Marrow with the Mexican arm drag, the Japanese arm drag, and the good old-fashioned American arm drag, all on Al Snow. Cassidy, though, with the Flair flip in the corner, he ducks Marrow's shit but sticks his tongue out and eats a jab off the apron. Fun little comedy spot with the comedian Leif Cassidy character. Double noggin knocker on the Goofy Rockers outside. And as the match continues on, Marrow chases Leif around ringside and runs right into a clothesline from Marty Jannetty. Leif then celebrates by dancing instead of wrestling. Commercial break and back in Leif with Marrow's own somersault plancha to the floor. I thought that was a bit of a problem there. That is one of Marrow's hot spot moves. I mean, and here it is, Al Snow doing the move to Marrow in the middle of the match. I don't know who called that or who thought that was a good idea. But Al Snow with the baseball slide and then a full Nelson? Very weird to see Leif Cassidy go into a full Nelson here. Marrow does slide out into a carousel head scissors is what they call it. And now Marrow with his own somersault plancha to the floor. And back inside, it's the top rope flying sunset flip. Marrow picks up another win, 6 minutes, 45 seconds. And I don't think Cassidy really screwed up this week.
Yeah, no battle royal to get the ropes all slick, I guess. But now Mark Marrow looked really good. I didn't realize how tall he was. You know, when you have all that shit hanging off your boots like you did in WCW from Johnny B. Bad, like he didn't look as tall as he was. But when he's just wearing basic tights and some wrestling boots with nothing on him, he looks really tall. He has some great offense. He looked good. It's crazy. He's still progressing and doing more things and pushing the envelope forward a little bit with his character and his moveset. Like that carousel head scissors, that was really cool. It was different for the time, and look, he pulled it off really well. And this is what we needed to see from him. Somebody like Leaf Cassidy in there with him definitely helped. All in all, really solid match here.
Yeah, I'd argue this should have been the original opponent or Marty. It would have made sense to do that back-to-back. Match with Leaf, match with Marty. Kind of keep going up the ladder there. But I digress as we continue on with the show. Diesel is on the phone. He's calling from Germany. He reiterates attacking Shawn Michaels at Madison Square Garden, and they even recap last week's attack where Diesel and Mr. Perfect teamed up to take out Shawn Michaels following Shawn's win over Jerry Lawler. We now learn the match between Shawn and Diesel at In Your House will be no holds barred. Looking forward to covering that show on patreon.com/WrestleCopia. All of our watch-alongs are there, guys. You can go check it out, patreon.com/WrestleCopia. $5 for the all-access tier and all of the watch-along series. WrestleMania will be up soon. We've got Uncensored already up there, and this In Your House is on the way as well. It's going to be a fun one. I haven't really seen this in quite a long time, and I remember enjoying at least the main event. I don't remember everything else on that show yet, but it should be fun.
Yeah, it's one of the better In Your Houses, if I remember right.
Show continues on with Stone Cold Steve Austin accompanied to the ring by Ted DiBiase taking on Bart Gunn. Of course, Billy Gunn's still out. We go back in time. We see a clip from Superstars where the Caribbean Kid pinned Steve Austin. Of course, the Caribbean Kid unmasked to be Savio Vega. This match starts out very basic match. Austin pulls both of them over the top rope. They take a bump to the floor. It's an unnecessary spot for a guy who has knee issues, I thought, with Austin kind of taking a backwards bump out of the ring with Bart Gunn, and they go into the commercial break. Coming back, it's back inside with Stone Cold in control. Bart Gunn manages to escape a chinlock, but Austin gets up high for a backdrop, and Bart with the Bulldog. And I thought, whoa, this is close here. Near fall, Austin barely kicks out before the 3 count off of Bart's Bulldog. Bart Gunn back on top, but he slips and luckily lands on the middle rope. Did you see that? He tried to jump up to the top rope for the reverse body block, but his feet slipped, but he somehow managed to land on the middle rope. Good cover and very lucky there by Bart Gunn.
Yeah, it looks like he almost overshot the top rope and went down to the middle rope. And like you said, he got lucky.
Very
he was
lucky.
able to hold on. And
and he never really
still hit the
flinched.
spot.
He just kind of kept going through the move. So good for Bart there.
Yeah, it looked good.
DiBiase winds up tripping Bart Gunn up, and Bart leans through the ropes to grab at Ted DiBiase, and Steve Austin from behind with the straddle leg drop drops Bart Gunn across the rope. Bart comes back and locks in a sleeper hold, and Austin counters with what may be the very first Stone Cold Stunner, I believe here. As I just recently read from an interview Savio Vega did. He talks about during this feud, Austin was trying this move out at all the house shows with Savio, trying to get it right. This felt like a very early inception of the stunner. Of course, it didn't look very pretty here, but it's what I got out of it. Bart locked in the sleeper, Austin with the stunner. Did you think it was a stunner? Or?
It looked like a drop-down jawbreaker, like a lot of people use to get out of sleeper holds and things like that, but it wasn't necessarily right on his head. It was more to the side, so yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, I was wondering that myself. I went back and watched it like 2 or 3 times. I was trying to get a better look at it, but I thought that was just an early inception of the stunner there. That was interesting. But that wasn't the finisher yet, because Austin locks Bart Gunn into the $1 Million Dream, picks up the win in 9.5 minutes. I wrote, the match was there.
It wasn't bad. Was this the show where Lawler said that DiBiase's offering $1 million for anybody to get out of the $1 Million Dream with Austin putting it on? So I wonder if that's what something they had in mind to do, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But he did mention that. But this match was okay. I mean, I wasn't expecting much with Bart Gunn. He showed me more than what I expected, and it was okay. It probably went a little too longer than it needed to, but it wasn't horrible.
Yeah, I think that's easily at this point Vince's inception of or perception of tag team wrestlers in singles matches. That they're not going to win against a singles wrestler. You already know that going in. So I was really surprised that Bart went as long as he did there. I guess they just needed to kill some time, I suppose. Vince McMahon to the ring for a promo with Jim Cornette and Vader. Cornette talks Gorilla Monsoon, says he's a legend, a Hall of Famer, a WWF president, but he stepped into the danger zone. Then there was Yokozuna, a 650-pound monster, former 2-time WWF champion. Left a blithering, whining shell of a man when Vader broke his leg. And now There's Razor Ramon is the next man up at the In Your House pay-per-view. Cornette sees the career of Razor taking a downward spiral after In Your House. Shoot. He will soon cease to exist. Yes, Razor Ramon will soon cease to exist. Again, corny. We saw that a lot in 89 too, doing those shoot comments in the kayfabe world there. Corny says that he's made some very bad career choices, meaning Scott Hall once again, by signing a contract. I thought, LOL. Of course, here Cornette's referring to the contract to wrestle Vader, not signing with WCW. Cornette says that Razor will never forget the WWF assigned him Vader. When Vader is done with the bad guy, Razor will be at Aunt B's in Mayberry in a quilting bee. And here's the funny part about that, obviously shooting on the Andy Griffith show, which was one of the big shows that made TBS back in the day. So again, Cornette with a lot of jabs at WCW, Turner, Razor making the jump. And even Cornette says he can't control Vader. And it's Vader time against the bad guy here at the In Your House pay-per-view. I'm sure you picked up on all these lines Cornette was coming up with here.
Oh, yeah, definitely. He did a great job putting Vader over. Obviously, the shots to Hall about jumping ship and things like that. So Cornette was always one of the best at doing that, if not the best, at getting those subtle shoot comments in but keeping it kayfabe. And this was no different. Just an excellent promo. I thought it was great.
And if you hadn't noticed by now, they're trying to get Sunny over as her own entity, even though she is the manager of the Body Donnas. And so we've come up with the old 1966 Bobby Hebb Sunny song with a Sunny video. I wrote, oh yeah, and thank you. I had forgotten how awesome this video was. I idolized this video as a teenager, Steve.
I'm sure you did. She looks excellent in this video. This is the Sunny we all love and know. I'm not going to go into too much detail. It's just unfortunate she is who she is.
Shout out to Sunny out there in whatever penitentiary she's hanging out in during this COVID world. As we continue the show.
Shout out to all her OnlyFans fans, I guess.
Yes, OnlyFans for you.
Not for me.
Intercontinental Champion Goldust to the ring. We know he's not injured, but of course this was taped before that, so this is why we don't really realize that he's injured. He's working here against Savio Vega, and before the match can start, Goldust licks the belt. You know, some guys like Bret Hart like to kiss the belt. Goldust licks the belt here, Steve, and he starts the match off with a go-behind on Savio and then begins to feel all over Vega. It was hilarious. Savio then gets angry. He controls the match, but he spanks Goldust. And Vega with the 10 punches in the corner as he mounts Goldust. It's kind of hard to see where Goldust's mouth is during this positioning, but Goldust counters with a hot shot on Savio and takes over the seated chinlock and then randomly releases the hold and asks for the microphone. He tells the fans to shut up or he will come out there and kiss each and every one of them. I felt like this is maybe an ad lib. Maybe the crowd was kind of dead and he was trying to work them back up. Vega makes the comeback with a crossbody. He gets a near fall. Goldust right back on top. And then he squats his balls over Savio's face because he's Goldust. Vega turns it into a sunset flip, though. So that was a nice counter out of the goofiness there of the Goldust spot. Goldust comes back again with a flying lariat and then goes to the top rope, but Vega crotches him. Surprised Goldust didn't sell that like he liked it as well. Savio then super kicks Goldust, who's sitting on the top rope. They do it was Savio's reach with his feet are just crazy. It's always been insane.
Oh man.
Yeah, it looks awesome. He's done that like repeatedly, but this.
Yeah, I had to rewind it and be like, did he really just do that? Like, it wasn't like a spin kick or anything. It was like a straight super kick,
right?
Dude's up sitting on the top rope.
The reach and the flexibility of Savio, it never ceases to amaze me.
Yeah, he's something else.
Vega goes up for a superplex, but Goldust actually kisses Savio. Vince says, he's biting him. But we know better, Vince. We see what's happening there as Goldust then shoves Vega off the ropes, but Goldust goes face first into a foot from Vega, and Vega makes another comeback 10 minutes into the match. And we're headed to a commercial. Back from break, Goldust does a drop down, and Savio crashes into referee Earl Hebner. Marlena gives Goldie the Intercontinental title belt, but Savio with a super kick and takes the belt and nails Goldust with it. Savio makes the cover. 1, 2, 3. Yes, he got him. Yes, he got him. He got him, Steve. new Intercontinental Champion Savio Vega in 12 minutes. But asshole referee Tim White, who was tending to Earl Hebner, tells him that Savio cheated. Fuck you, Tim White. Where are you any other week when this shit goes down? Earl Hebner raises Savio's hand. Now, he's the referee on duty. He's the referee on call. Earl Hebner raises Savio's hand. But White goes over and raises Goldust's hand. Maybe they got something going on backstage, Steve. Who the fuck are you, Tim White, to come out here during another referee's match and try to overrule him? You're not even the senior official, bitch. Gorilla Monsoon then makes his return to Monday Night Raw and talks with the Fink, who announces that Goldust is being stripped of the Intercontinental title. But Savio Vega is also not the champion. The title has been vacated. As the crowd boos loudly, there will be a rematch next week to determine the Intercontinental champion.
Yeah, this is a really good match. I felt like Savio and Goldust just worked perfect together. I guess you could say that about a lot of guys with Savio because he's so damn good. That Latin temper and going against that Goldust character, it's just perfect, man. It worked well, and these guys did excellent together. It was a really, really good match. I'm looking forward to the rematch. It's just it makes you wonder too, since they stripped him of the belt for this angle or whatever, just to get to the next week or whatever. This makes you wonder if they knew he was hurt, if they would have done it a little differently, maybe given Savio a little bit of a run or something, do something different. But right. Who knows? No, this is a really good match. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, definitely a good one. No shocker there. Savio is always getting good matches out of everyone. Not that Dustin can't work, but with the Goldust character, it takes a special kind of guy to put on a really good match, and Savio did a really good job here with Goldust and working that Goldust character in. They both did a really good job here.
Oh yeah, Savio's criminally underrated, man.
Absolutely, I've said that.
Damn underrated.
I said that when he was there.
Oh my god.
Yeah, he was. I never understood why he never cracked that next level, that Intercontinental title run. I never understood it. With the guys there, I guess you can only pull the trigger on who you can pull the trigger on. One guy can only be champion at a time, I suppose.
Yeah, and it's not like it is now where it's just like a participation trophy. You've been there long enough, you'll get it. I think, like, Tatanka's probably tooting his own horn a little bit when I was listening to him the other day, but he's like, when you have a character that's over, you don't need the title necessarily. It's like Savio, to me, I felt like he was always over. He always put on such good matches that he was always over, to the point where it's like, damn, you don't even need the title. It'd be nice if he had it because he's good and he deserves it. But at the same time, he's going out there putting on bankers and losing every week, and people don't even really care. Like, they just buy into it because Savio's that dang good.
Yeah, he really is.
So like it'd have been nice if he got a little bit of a run with the IC title, but did he really need it? I don't know. I don't necessarily think so.
We continue on with the episode of Raw. We actually see exclusive behind-the-scenes footage from WrestleMania 12 of Bret Hart backstage after losing the title. He tells the cameras to get out of his dressing room and actually leaves the arena in his gear, peels out in his car, and he's gone. Like a thief in the night. Bret Hart promo then from Germany, Steve. It's actually a forced promo. Notes DeMeltz to quell rumors of Bret Hart going to WCW. Vince was so worried about rumors of Bret Hart going to WCW that he actually forced Bret to cut this promo, because Bret was basically supposed to be gone completely off TV anyway. After WrestleMania, of course, he agreed to go do the big Germany tour after the pay-per-view because he was such a big star there in Germany, and then he was going to go off to Hollywood or whatever he was going to go do. But he had to cut this promo because Vince was worried about the rumors. He wanted Bret to quell those rumors here. As Bret begins his bitching, I wrote, I think this is the first bitching Bret promo. He was told the match was 60 minutes, not 62. It's an Iron Man match. For 60 minutes, it goes 62, of course we know. And Shawn Michaels, in overtime, sudden death, if you will, gets the world title from the Hitman. Bret said he beat Shawn Michaels in his eyes because he lasted the full 60 minutes. They rang the bell, which saved Shawn Michaels from the sharpshooter, which he was applied in when the time, or the initial time, ran out. The restart delay then caused Bret to make his mistake when he got overheated. He was angry that they forced him to restart the match. Bret makes sure to mention he's not going to a certain wrestling organization. Bret said he's not greedy for money, but rather respect. I do believe that, Steve. He feels betrayed every time he loses the title. I wonder why. He feels less and less like coming back. but he'd love a title shot tomorrow. What did you make of it?
I'll defend my guy here. I don't care. He made sense. If you're going to go over sudden death, why not just continue the match? Why stop it? I mean, basically, like, it's kind of like, I don't even really know of an analogy to even go with it, but it makes sense in the fact that these details should have been hammered out ahead of time. I know it's a work, but why are you going to stop the match right in the middle of a finishing hold just to restart it 2 minutes later and say we're going back at it? Like, that doesn't seem fair. You should just let it go. If you're going to do that, just might as well just let it go. But it is what it is. I don't really care. I don't take it that serious like Bret Hart. He makes sense to me, and I kind of like what he's saying. He shit all over WCW in this promo.
Yeah. And that's really, even though he used this promo to utilize this promo to really get over, the story, which I thought he did a really good job with, they made sure smack dab in the middle of this promo out of nowhere to say he's not going to WCW.
Yeah, it was like he could never see himself working for another company because he would see it as a step down. He's not greedy for money, but respect, and the only place he's going to get respect is in the WWF. Clearly just insinuating that WWF's the big time, WCW's second rate, and he never wants to work for them. And it's funny too, he says that the part of him feels less and less coming back, and obviously the part about being portrayed every time he lost the title. He lost the belt in 93 to Hogan, and he felt betrayed there because they thought they was done with all that stupid shit. I don't necessarily... Is this the second time he's had it? No, this is the third time. Yeah, he lost to Backlund to get it to Diesel, so I don't know the betrayal there. It seems like Vince gave up on him, saying little guys ain't going to work, so we got to get it over to this next big monster and let him carry it as the face of the company. So I can see in his mind where he feels betrayed, as he seems like he probably feels like he's a transition champion, even though he's not necessarily. He's going to hold the belt whenever they need him to until they can get it to the next big baby face that comes through. So I can see where he's coming from. But is it whiny Bret? Yeah, it's definitely whiny Bret. It's bitchy Bret. And it seems like bitter old man Bret.
I think it's the birth of the whiny hitman, I think, is the character here. Of course, he's off TV after this for quite a while. No, I'm fine with that. I mean, it leads to something big here by next WrestleMania.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So it's just planting the seeds. I don't know if it's on purpose, but it's just Bret being Bret, and they finally utilized it to its advantage instead of forcing something that's not necessarily there.
Segment of the night, Steve. I got it narrowed down for myself to Goldust versus Savio Vega or the Sunny video for other reasons.
It's definitely Savio and Goldust. Is a really good match. Like I said, that Latin temper of Savio going against Goldust and those shenanigans was just excellent. You knew it was going to play well off of each other, and because Savio's a pro's pro, and his whole gimmick ever since he's came in was that temper and just going off and getting that crowd behind him, and that's exactly what happened. And this is where I put down he's criminally underrated, man. It's such an unfortunate situation where he's not necessarily getting the credit he deserves. I'm glad he's popping up on some of these interviews now. I don't know if it was just because he was in town for the Undertaker stuff, so hey, you're here, let's get a couple interviews out of you for like some of these shows that they're putting on the network and things like that. So it's cool that he's being involved or put in. I know he's in that Meeting Stone Cold video, which is really good. And I think he's on some Undertaker stuff. So I really, really enjoy his work. Again, it's just unfortunate people forget how good he is. Yeah,
and when I first think of Goldust, even though he's been with the company now about 6 months, the first things that always came to my mind whenever I thought of the Goldust character was the character building. Obviously, the Razor stuff, and then Savio's. His matches with Savio. All of those little gimmicks in between, those things they worked into the match, and a lot of those were reportedly Savio's idea. Hey, why don't you do this when you go behind me? These Goldust's like, are you sure? Yeah, do this. And so reportedly Savio came up with some of these spots. And I thought, like we say, he's always guaranteed to give a good match out there. So that's definitely my segment of the night here in 2021. Now, 1996, I would have told you that Sunny video all day long, but that's another story for a completely different reason. And you know what that means. The ratings are in, and with no Nitro last week, the momentum carried through for the WWF here on April 15th, when a stronger Raw show started evenly, but eventually pulled away in the second half hour to beat out WCW Nitro with a 3.1 rating and a 4.6 share, to Nitro's 2.8 rating and 4.3 share. Both shows tried to get the jump on each other this week, WCW starting at 8:56 and immediately putting a Hulk Hogan match on TV, while WWF, of course, started a minute later at 8:57. It's new scheduled permanent starting times for both companies.
Jesus.
The real winner here this week, Steve, is it Nitro or Raw?
Before I answer that, I have a quick question. So if they start early, are they just trying to get a ratings jump in that last 3 minutes of the hour, the previous hour?
The ratings jump. The ratings jump would be the run over. This is being done just because this is the pettiness of it. The run over would be your ratings jump. This is not a ratings jump. This is, I'm going to start a minute before you, hoping that if I start off hot in this first minute, they're not going to change the channel. That's what this is, and that's why this is so fucking petty.
This is stupid. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. The better show is definitely Raw.
Agreed.
They did a good job of showcasing the new talent. You know, Mero, Goldust. I know he's been around for a while, but this is like the new gimmick Goldust, where he's actually working. He's the IC champion. Steve Austin had a decent match with Bart Gunn. And it was just a really good show, top to bottom, full of action that made sense. Guys that won that needed to win. You established a match for next week with an angle there, and I want to see more Mark Mero. Sable's easy on the eyes for sure, so nice having her around, and I want to see more Mark Mero. So excellent job compared to Nitro, which was just a cluster and shit.
And as we conclude there, I agree with you. Like I just said, Raw was the better show. I think Savio versus Goldust, that was it to me. That sold it for me. It was just one good match that really made the difference for me this week. As we continue on to the next week, but before we do, it's more Brian Pillman news. Pillman is reportedly released from University Hospital in Cincinnati on April 19th after rolling his Hummer 4 nights earlier and suffering numerous injuries, the most serious of which was a crushed ankle, as we know, Steve. When the police and medics found Pillman Monday night, moments after taking a 40-foot fall from being ejected from his vehicle, which rolled, he had lost so much blood that those who found him believed he wasn't going to make it. His face was so swollen early in the week that even his own sister couldn't have identified him, and there was initial fear the fall could have done damage to his spinal cord and possibly crippled Brian Pillman. He was in the burns unit at the hospital early in the week and originally in intensive care, although his condition was quickly upgraded by the end of the week after surgery, which included taking bones from his hip to reconstruct his ankle, unfortunately. He was told that the long-term prognosis was good and that the injury shouldn't be serious enough to threaten his wrestling career. I don't know how having a shattered ankle would not threaten your wrestling career. He was allowed to go home from the hospital for the weekend. Insane. Pillman, who had undergone his 34th throat operation just a few weeks earlier related to a throat condition as a young kid, now finds himself out again with a severe injury. The surgery included having his jaw wired shut for approximately 1 week after the surgery there after the accident. Pillman, who was wearing a heavy Harley biker jacket, was ejected, believed the thickness of the jacket saved him from more serious injuries, as the jacket itself was torn to shreds. He also felt fortunate the injuries weren't worse, and that for whatever reason he wasn't wearing a seatbelt at the time he rolled the Hummer after striking a tree stump in a field on the side of Kentucky Route 338 near his home. The vehicle was destroyed, and he was told by police that had he been wearing a seatbelt, he would have been crushed inside the Hummer. So it's just another situation. You've heard that before. Remember Eddie Guerrero's accident. Had he not been ejected, they say he may have lost his life as well way back when. Doctors told Pillman that it will be 8 weeks before he can start rehabbing the ankle and perhaps another month after that before he can get back in the ring. The accident occurred 2 days before Pillman's contract with WCW, believed to be in around $225,000 per year, was to expire. If Shark's getting $250, there's no doubt that had Pillman not been injured here, he could have got a little more than $225. Pillman has had informal talks since the accident with both WWF and WCW, and the injury doesn't appear to be nearly the hindrance in getting a new deal as first thought, since it appears both groups believe Brian Pillman's strength in the wrestling ring right now is his persona and not really his wrestling anyway.
Yeah, lucky individual. It's crazy to think they say, "Oh, wear your seatbelt," and you should wear your seatbelt. I'm not telling anybody not to, but sometimes in situations where they're that bad, I mean, they're just as dangerous as anything else. So crazy. It seems like the Lucky Stars was looking over him at that point, with the jacket, not wearing a seatbelt. It seems like a lot of things went in his favor in that situation to save his life. Wow. I don't know how you can survive that. It sounds rough. And when you see him sign his contract with Vince, like on the press conference, it looks like he went through nothing. Like his face was fine. You didn't see any scars or anything. He looked like Pillman. So it's crazy how bad it sounds on paper compared to what we see going forward. Pretty intense.
And we're going to continue on with the April 22nd edition of WCW Monday Nitro in Albany, Georgia. For 6,500 fans, that's 3,800 paying. It's the first Nitro of the post-Hogan era. At least, albeit briefly, but I'll take it. I'll definitely take it, Steve.
Yeah, I'm happy. I've been waiting for this for a long time.
You've been talking about this for months.
I'm a Hogan fan. I'm a Hogan fan, but Nitro is brutal with Hulk Hogan. Hulkamania Hulk Hogan, anyway. I'll say that.
As the show gets going, it's Pepe with Mongo. He has googly eyes popping out and Dracula cape. I don't know what the fuck's going on here. As the show kicks off, it's Public Enemy in the ring again. How these guys get so many Nitro matches? They're taking on the American Males. But before the match can get going, Eric Bischoff is back to his old shenanigans again, Steve. He gives away the results to Monday Night Raw.
We are not like the World Whining Federation, which is a tape can show. Happened a couple of weeks ago. Let me save you some time and put your remote control down. The RuPaul impersonator, the transvestite Goldust, defeats Savio Vega, regains the Intercontinental title. Yawn. Mankind defeats Aldo Montoya, bigger yawn, and Vader defeats Fatu. Oh boy. But we are live. Anything can happen, and it may happen tonight in the main event.
Old Uncle Eric back to his old ways again here.
Yeah, he lost the ratings, and Vince, he had a hot rating when they were off TV, and then they carried that over and won again. So back to the old tricks,
And let's not forget there was a match going on in the ring when Bischoff really put over that WCW is live, which is kind of funny because next week it's not live, but he's selling it like Nitro's live every week and Raw is taped. But you never hear Vince give away their finishes. And anyway, in the ring, it's Public Enemy who attack the American Males here in our opening match, but the Males wind up clearing the ring. And Bagwell and Riggs with planches out to the floor on Public Enemy. Bischoff even makes it a point to say hello to Brian Pillman after that near fatal accident here on commentary. So clearly you can see how serious this was. Eric Bischoff breaking Pillman's character basically for him by saying hello to him and wishing him well on commentary. As the match continues on, decent American Males double team moves here. Much better than the Dynamic Dudes anyway. Bagwell has really peaked here, I thought. Offensively in the ring, he's looked the best he's ever looked in his career up until this point. And probably beyond as well, because we all know once he joins the NWO, it's all downhill from there in the ring anyway. Public Enemy take over, and they get the offense and the heat on Bagwell. Rocco Rock with a lion salt. And then Rocco misses the drive-by. That's the somersault senton from the top rope. And hot tag. Bagwell to Scotty Riggs. Rocco backdrops Bagwell out of the ring. But apparently that's okay this week. But then they throw Riggs over the top, and that's not okay, Steve. That is a disqualification. I wrote, okay. So if you backdrop a guy out of the ring, that's cool. If you grab the guy and just pitch him out, that's not cool. And there's a DQ here. The American Males even defeat Public Enemy. 7 minutes and 23 seconds. And again, it's the Public Enemy sandwich. Both guys put Scotty Riggs through the table on the floor after the match. And the Public Enemy, again, completely out of their element here this week. Terrible wrestling match.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. I think the only reason the backdrop wasn't is because Bagwell wasn't the legal guy. So I think since Riggs was the legal man, they tossed him. But yeah, Public Enemy, I think this is what they're getting over, is that they just don't care about the rules. All they want to do is just garbage fight and trash, just street fights and the ECW style, according to what people think ECW style is. So they're just doing things like the sandwich and then just tossing dudes over the top rope to get DQ because they don't really care about winning. They just want to beat the hell out of people. It's fine, and I guess, but I'm not believing the Public Enemy as those guys. That may be what they do, but I'm not believing that as a character. Now, like, Ming or somebody like that, fine, but not the Public Enemy. I'm not buying it.
A finish like this makes sense to me the first couple weeks of their run because you're getting over their character. They don't care if they're disqualified. They want to put people through tables, whatever. They debut back in January. This is April. they need to start getting wins instead of doing this same nonsense week after week. We're seeing the same thing. Sometimes they connect with that finish, that post-match table spot. Sometimes Rocco goes through it all on his own. But no matter what, we know it's coming, and that's really all the fans are supposed to be waiting for, I suppose. And the match is just kind of there. I thought the males looked good for on their side of the match anyway.
Yeah, I did too. They look fine. Bagwell, like you said, looked really good. He came off the top at the beginning with like a double clothesline. He hit the plunger to the floor. He's just doing things that you'll never see again as Buff. So enjoy it while you can if that's what you're into.
That's sad. It's short-term, short-lived that Bagwell's finally really coming into his own as a worker in the ring, a really good wrestler, and it's so close to the end of that run at the same time because that it's
when does he get his neck injury?
Oh God, that's way later. That's NWO, right? Yeah, he's NWO. They do where Rick Steiner with the Bulldog. Yeah, that's quite a while down the way. I think that happens on Thunder, so I know that's quite a ways off.
I know he definitely doesn't do anything after that.
We continue.
I can't say I blame him.
No, not really. I mean, but was he really doing anything up until that point, other than taking a Bulldog from Rick Steiner?
Well, give us about 8 months, and we'll be able to answer that question.
And we go on with the show. Mean Gene Okerlund. It's the Lethal Lottery, the Battle Bowl at Slamboree. And Mean Gene with some ladies out here. He's going to draw some matches for the pay-per-view. Actually announces a few. What great matches these are. It's Hugh Morris and Ming taking on Ming's partner, the Barbarian. What odds are that? And Hard Work Bobby Walker. And this might be one of the reasons that Walker cites the when he sues WCW. This might be the reason because they actually pull him out of the match in favor of DDP heading into the pay-per-view. We all know what happens at that point. Also, Fire and Ice, Scott Norton and Ice Train just happened to draw one another's names. They're teaming up at the Lethal Lottery show to take on Stevie Ray and Big Bubba. What an interesting match that is. The girls have no idea what they're doing out here, you can tell. Mean Gene tries to ad-lib with them. He tells them to cut the cards. They don't seem to know how to cut cards, shuffle. They don't really know what the hell they're doing here. But they draw one live match, and I wrote, why did you announce two and then draw one live? Then it all makes sense because we learned that Arn Anderson and Eddie Guerrero are going to take on the team of the Macho Man and the Nature Boy Ric Flair. What are the odds, Steve?
Oh, Jesus. That's my point, man. If you think wrestling is real, this is it for you. This is going to end it.
Every fucking Lethal Lottery match, either a team was teaming or a team was facing off against each other, or Savage and Flair in the feud together are facing off. And we even learned like Regal and Finlay were supposed to team. It's like overkill to the max.
Yeah, and VK Wall Street and Duggan team.
Right.
That's later on that we'll find out. So it's just like complete lazy. And what's sad is Lethal Lottery back in the day, like there was nothing really like that. It was completely random, it felt like. There was so many weird teams and combos, and there was maybe one or two matches that had a feud in them that you needed. But this was just utter laziness. They put over the fact that Public Enemy drew each other as partners. So that gives them the advantage, but I'm like, yeah, it's Public Enemy. So it's just they don't give a shit about this pay-per-view. They probably that they even booked it.
They do care about the Savage and Flair feud, that's for certain. As we go back to the ring, it's Chris Benoit taking on Eddie Guerrero. I wrote, what a match on paper. More on that after the match, though, Steve. Chris Benoit is back from Japan, and Eddie Guerrero finally back on Nitro as well. The Cruiserweights finally back on Nitro. We've been asking for this for weeks. But no, as the match gets going, we see a feeling out process. Chris Benoit works a chin lock as we head into a commercial break. Coming out, Benoit shoots Eddie Guerrero up into the air. Eddie comes flying back down about 8 feet in the air, comes down with a flying head scissors takeover. It looked awesome. And Eric Bischoff tries to call it a necktie takeover. Then he says, also known as a flying head scissors. Really? And Eddie Guerrero then with a flying Rana from the top rope. Benoit again announces that as a necktie takeover. So I don't know where he got this from. I've never heard that term before or again here. Might be the only moves he actually calls in the entire match, however. Eddie Guerrero tries the victory roll, spins it around into a sunset flip in the corner, but Benoit drops his knees down on Eddie and grabs the ropes for leverage. Benoit steals the win in about 7.5 minutes. Would have made for a decent little TV match, not anywhere near as good as they could be, but they spent the entire match talking about Randy Savage and Ric Flair drawing their names as a tag team at Slamboree, and they ignore great moves and near falls. I wrote fucking awful, just awful. We're right back to this.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. I mean, the match itself was, to me, I'm not even counting the commentary. I was calling the commentary bad, by the way. The match just felt underwhelming. I don't know if it was because of the commentary or what. Just based off the two who's in the ring, I was expecting, fireworks and a really good match, but it wasn't. It wasn't that. Like you said, there's a filling out process. There's an extended chin lock. Eddie was doing some of the flying moves way more than Benoit. There was a nice German in there with a bridge for 2 counts, stuff like that. But the Rana, Eddie didn't get around all the way. Like, he kind of ate the mat a little bit, so it didn't look as clean as it could have. And then the finish, they kind of got tangled up, and it's kind of ugly. It just felt very underwhelming. Like, okay, Benoit and Eddie, let's go. I can't wait to see this. And then all of a sudden the match happens, and it's
we know they know how to work, so we know they did this on purpose. They literally held back on purpose, and I'm kind of glad they did. I'm glad this wasn't like a sleeper 4-star match or 3.5-star match or whatever you want to call it over this commentary. They would have done it no justice, so I'm kind of glad. It's almost like they knew. It's like, well, they want to talk about fucking Randy Savage and Ric Flair. Let's just go out there and work a chin lock. Not that I'm not shitting on it. If it was any 2 other guys, this would be fine. You just expect a lot more from them.
Yeah, like when you see them on the show, this is what we've been asking for and wanting to see. And now that Hogan's gone, we're expecting to get this going forward. This was just underwhelming. And I do know at the beginning of the match, Bischoff's putting over the Cruiserweight title tournament that's been over for like a month now.
Yeah.
Talking about how Eddie and Brad Armstrong are still alive for the U.S. team. And Benoit, he was too busy focusing on Horseman business over in Japan, lost the match to Otani. So, kind of shit all over Otani, and he's the
Which
champ,
is funny,
right?
because Otani won the damn fucking, he's the damn champion.
So it's like Benoit couldn't care less that he was in the ring with Otani, let alone Otani being your Cruiserweight champion. So right. Bischoff's terrible. Whatever. He just wants to put over what he wants to put over. And we've talked about this from the beginning of Nitro. These guys don't get the attention that they deserve when it comes to their matches. And I don't know if they ever do.
Yeah, and they get
comes in.
They get sandwiched in between this Savage and Flair storyline, so we learn they're going to team at Slamboree before the Guerrero and Benoit match, and now after the match, it's Mean Gene Okerlund with one of the many vice presidents of WCW, Rob Garner, and Randy Macho Man Savage. Garner tells Savage that he is out of control and says it's unacceptable. Garner tells Savage that if it doesn't stop immediately, the ramifications will be severe. The Macho Man then toys with Garner's tie and finger in the face. Don't fuck with me, no, never. And this stuffy suit played well here by Garner. Felt like he was really what he was portraying here. It came out very well for what he was trying to get over. This guy really has no business out there trying to act, if you want to call it that. But I got to give him kudos. He's not one of those people that break character and smile when the wrestler's cutting a promo on him. So at least, I don't know if this guy can smile, though. Maybe he doesn't know how. Savage going to blow up City Hall, he says, basically talking about blowing up the Turner brand company. And remember when it was okay to say figures of speech like, I'm going to blow something up? You can't do that anymore here in this day and age. But back in 96, that was okay. People understood. It's just a figure of speech. Is Randy Savage going to blow up the entire WCW corporation? Garner suggests Savage needs professional help. Boy, that's long overdue. Steve, Macho Man...
Vince tried in 85 on TNT. It didn't work then. It ain't gonna work now.
Don't even try it. Don't think about it. Savage then calls Garner a little stupid person. And he threatens to slap Garner the old Dr. D slap to the face. He doesn't do it, but he does make the threat before the Macho Man storms off. And we get the old Mean Gene, damn it, to close out the segment. As just Macho Man going crazy one more time. Little stupid person. I
like the line where he said all these suits and ties are getting a little too comfortable around the Macho Man. That was great. He did an excellent job here. Nothing new there. But yeah, like you said, Garner, he backed up, and when Macho got in his face, he kind of looked scared a little bit. He didn't feel comfortable out there, and he played his part well. He didn't mess it up, or he didn't, cheat Savage out of what he was trying to say. So good stuff all around there. And what's funny is he can talk about blowing things up until after the Olympics are over, right?
Right, yeah. They got a few more months.
In 96.
Right, yeah. He's got a few more months of blowing shit up before that gets 86.
There's a few more months to talk about blowing up.
Before Turner, before that's the next sentence that can't be said on Turner TV, like a foreign object.
Ooh. Wow.
As we continue on with the show, it's Hacksaw Jim Duggan in the ring taking on Ming for what reason, I have no fucking idea. A commercial immediately.
Same thought process. I said, whose idea is this?
We get a commercial immediately before the match, and I thought, man, I hope that they go 2 minutes before we come back, but nope. As we come back from commercial, then the bell sounds, so no, we're getting the whole damn shebang here. Jim Duggan won't let Ming in the ring to get going, but Ming finally gets in, and the stomping and choking begins. He even applies that deadly trapezius nerve hold, not once, but twice. You go, Haku. Ming misses a big leg drop, not once, but twice, and Duggan makes his comeback. Duggan does miss a charge in the corner, and Ming beats him down, slow motion Steve Austin style, in the corner. Eric Bischoff's new word now, people aren't hitting the deck hard anymore. Now people are glomming each other, by the way. I noted he said it twice here just in this match alone, glomming. You know the only other person I've ever heard use that word? My grandmother. I don't know. It's not a word that you commonly hear. As Jim Duggan goes for his 2x4, but the referee grabs it away, which allows Ming to nail the thrust kick. But Duggan gets his foot on the rope. Bischoff said he knew where he was, referring to him getting his foot on the rope. Bobby replies he's never known where he was. Kind of opened the door for Bobby there. And Duggan rolls to the outside where he tapes up his fist, and he gets back in the ring with the tape hanging from his hand, but apparently the referee can't see it. And he nails Ming, who takes the slow fall backwards. Hacksaw gets the cover and the win in 5 minutes, 55 seconds. I wrote, why not use this match to talk about the Macho Man and Ric Flair? Why talk over Eddie and Benoit when we have this beautiful clusterfuck between Duggan and Haku?
Name value, maybe? I don't know. This wasn't... I know it was shit on paper at the beginning, but this wasn't terrible. Ming was getting up on that big elbow and then the big leg drop that he missed. He was getting up on that. I never seen him really get up that high outside of doing, when he was the Islander with Tama. So it was cool to see Ming do some of those things. And it wasn't terrible. It wasn't good by any means, but it wasn't horrible. It was better than any Nasty Boys Public Enemy match. I'll tell you that.
We continue on as Mean Gene pulls more matches for Slamboree, including Alex Wright in the Disco Inferno taking on Dick Slater and Earl Robert Eaton. That's supposed to make me want to buy a fucking pay-per-view? Gene then hits on the ladies standing with him, and he has them prepped with lines that basically insinuate that they're going to hang out with Mean Gene following the Nitro here tonight. I wrote, perv. As we also learn, the team of, as you pointed out earlier, VK Wall Street will team with Jim Duggan. What are the odds? And on the other side, it was supposed to be Regal teaming with Finlay. Talk about lazy on both sides of the ring. Of course, that doesn't happen. Finlay suffers an injury coming up, and he's off back to Ireland or wherever the hell he was living over there. And actually, Regal gets a replacement partner in Dave Taylor, of all things. I don't know how that's fair. Again, very lazy. So it goes from Finlay to Dave Taylor. Mean Gene even, again, ad-libs with the ladies. He says he has some extra money tonight, if you know what he means. These girls had no clue. Mean Gene going into the business for himself here. Cherry, what?
Sounds like it. Cherry was hot, though. She was the one on the left, the red dress. The
blonde lady. Yeah, she looked like my high school girlfriend. Yeah.
She was pretty nice looking.
We go to the main event where all of the titles are on the line. I think Bischoff got this idea from Mongo last week, you think? As all of the titles are on the line.
Or you could have stole it from In Your House, like 2 or whatever it was.
Well, that made more. Well, and yeah, In Your House 3, I get what you're saying there, where you pin the champion, you win the belt. But this one makes less sense, at least the way they sell it is it's tag team champion Sting and Luger, but also TV champion Luger taking on world champion Ric Flair and the Giant, who's the only man without a belt here, so he has the most to win out of this match. But here's where the rules make fucking no sense whatsoever. Apparently, Sting can pin his own partner Lex Luger to win the TV title, and the Giant can pin his own partner Ric Flair to win the world title. How does that happen if this is a tag team match, Steve? It's not a 4 corners match. How do you eventually get in the ring with your own partner? It's impossible. It makes no fucking sense whatsoever.
Yeah, it makes absolutely no sense. And if I'm Lex Luger, why are you signing up for this match? Because you're the one who can lose the most.
Everything.
Because if you get pinned, you're losing both belts. This was something else. And my question is, how the hell do you give this away on free TV?
Yeah, with no build. No build. They just kick off the show.
No build, nothing. And it's just like, what the hell's going on? This is stupid. It makes absolutely no sense.
As the match gets going, the faces double team and clothesline the Giant out to the floor. Of course, he lands on his feet, and then they take out the Nature Boy as well. Ric Flair gets back in the ring and struts around and turns right around into a Lex Luger pose. And Flair sells it like he's scared to death. It was hilarious. Great stuff here. This is actually a comical Ric Flair match. This is where I was talking about. I don't know that he cares so much right now of being taken seriously as a top-level world champion performer. He's really relying more on comedy and the basic bumps that he takes every week. The faces dominate Ric Flair here. Sting with the press slam not once, but twice. Even slams him off the top rope and the old top rope superplex, all the usual. And Stinger misses a Stinger splash on the floor right into the guardrail. And the heels take over heat on Sting. But it doesn't last too long before hot tag to Lex Luger after Sting no-sells a suplex. So this is what you were referring to with nobody selling anything that Ric Flair does. It wasn't like they worked in a spot where there's a double down or Flair telegraphs a backdrop and gets, something done to him or, any of your normal hot tag double down spots. Instead, Flair delivers a suplex to Sting and Sting just pops up. Basically, he hulks up for the Nature Boy here and it's a hot tag to Lex Luger. And that's when we see woman on the outside is holding yet another cup of coffee. As Lex goes to try to torture rack the Nature Boy, the Giant grabs Luger for a chokeslam. Sting comes back in with not one, but two chop blocks, which drops the Giant down to his knee, but he keeps popping back up and won't let go of the chokehold he has on Luger. Sting unloads on the Giant, kicks and punches. Finally, the Giant takes a bump, a big fall. Always does that really well here. The Giant finally releases the chokeslam and takes the bump for all the offense from the Stinger. Jimmy Hart then up on the apron, but he gets nailed off as well. As Ric Flair gets handed the coffee from woman, Flair then throws the coffee at both of the baby faces, but they duck, and the coffee goes right into the eyes of the Giant. And Ric Flair runs away, at least momentarily. I thought that was funny as well. And then the bell sounds, Steve, and I wrote, what the fuck? Again, another finish that I'm not really sure what the fucking finish was. Match went 7 minutes and 24 seconds. The Giant rages post-match, by the way. Flair finally returns with a towel to clean his eyes, pleads on his knees, prays to the Giant above. Please don't kill me, Mr. Giant. I wrote, LOL, more comedy from Ric Flair here. What was your take on the finish?
Since when is hitting your own partner with coffee or something a DQ? I'm assuming it's a DQ. I don't even know what the finish was or what they called it for, but when was that ever a DQ or anything? It's your bad. So it's just a cheap way to get out of a finish when you book yourself into these matches. That's all it is. But this was a terrible finish to an otherwise decent match, but it's the same exact match we seen last week. Same spot, same everything, almost. Nearly to a T. Wasn't as good as last week's either. I don't know, man. It's rough. It's just...
What was the point in selling that the Giant can beat Flair, Sting can beat Luger? We never even see that teased here. Again, I don't know how you would even tease it because you can't really tag other people when you have a tag team, but they don't even tease that here at all. There's never a point where it looks like Sting's going to wrestle Luger or the Giant's going to wrestle Flair. Of course, no title changes hands in that regard either, so I don't understand the point of even announcing it that way.
Yeah, it's just, it feels like I said, it just feels like a match or a gimmick to pop a rating. I mean, okay, if you, like Bischoff announces at the very beginning of the show, so as soon as you turn on the show, they went straight to the table, and Bischoff announced that all the titles are on the line, and this is what you can get. The Giant can pin Flair, so you're like, oh shit, I got to tune into this. I got to see this, because I want to see what happens. I mean, the Giant can turn on Flair, drop him with the chokeslam and pin him. That's cool. That's different. And then you see it play out, and it's just like I said, it's just a ratings grab. It wasn't intended to be anything special or unique or different. It was just a way to con you in, to tune in at the very end of the show so they can get that last bit of rating bump on the overrun. So it's just a ploy by Bischoff, but the match itself was very underwhelming, and it's unfortunate. It's a great idea, and I feel like if it's done properly, it's not bad. But both of these companies have done this in 96. I think it was 96, maybe in 95 for WWF. And it sounds like a cool idea and probably a good way to sell a pay-per-view. But at the end of the day, it's very, very difficult to, unless you want two guys having all your belts, it's definitely difficult to book yourself out of it in that situation. So sounds good on paper, putting all the belts on the line in one match, but it doesn't necessarily deliver.
Post-match, Mean Gene Okerlund enters the ring to talk to the Giant about what just transpired. The coffee burned, said the Giant, but it lit a fire in his soul. The Giant wants a title shot next week against Ric Flair, and he starts talking like it's a foregone conclusion, like he already knows this match is going to happen. I don't know how he knows, but that upsets the Nature Boy, who invades the announce desk and says this.
Next Monday, the World Heavyweight Championship belt on Nitro. It's mine.
Oh, just a second.
Set up.
Ric Flair. Ric Flair.
Hey.
Yes.
I tried to apologize. You didn't like it. Now I'm mad.
He tried to apologize.
I don't like the way you look at the girls anyway.
I don't know.
So you got till the end of the show to apologize to me, or next week I'm gonna kick your big ass.
There you go.
And so I thought that was fun. I picked up that soundbite, Ric Flair, just again continuing with the comedy. I don't know if it's intentional or not, but I love the delivery there. I'm gonna kick your big ass. And what happens? So you hear the crowd pop. For those who didn't watch this or aren't following along by actually watching the shows, as soon as he says that, the Giant leaves the ring, comes chasing after Flair, and Flair jets out of there too, and that's why the crowd pops huge. The Giant in chase after Ric Flair after saying, "I'm going to kick your big ass." But it was hilarious too, where Flair said, "I tried to apologize, but now you made me mad." And I don't like the way you look at the girls either. So the Nature Boy being comical here, I thought.
Being the Nature Boy. Yeah, and what's funny is he's like, you have till the end of the show to accept my apologies or apologize to him. And when I looked at the timestamp and there's like a minute and a half left.
2 minutes
of
left.
The show, I'm like, well, time's up. So another great spot too was Heenan when they went to the table. Heenan's like under the chair and
I grabbed some,
peeking himself up real slow.
I don't grab too many
funny.
screen caps of these shows, but I did grab that. It's like Heenan's head on the table or something. That was good stuff there. Bobby Heenan hiding under the table.
Doing his part to sell it. Yeah,
more classic Bobby.
Yeah, for sure.
And as we close the show, Eric Bischoff then confirms that a title shot will take place. I was like, wow, that was fast. As the Giant will challenge Ric Flair for the world title, quote unquote, next week. In fact, that it is on the same taping. Actually, next week's episode will be taped here after this episode of Monday Nitro. And we also hear that Randy Savage is once again in handcuffs, this time by the police. Randy Savage getting arrested? I don't know. We'll have to tune in next week and find out more about that. Or, you can always call the hotline. And beginning next week, Monday Nitro moves to 7 p.m. due to the NBA games going on. So it is what it is, and that's where we are with Monday Nitro. So they start off by changing up their time slot, Steve, and, going on the air 4 minutes early, and now they're forced to go on the air at 7. So it's changed again, basically.
Unopposed then. They're not going against each other.
Right.
Yeah. It's the playoffs, so that's normal. But got to do what you got to do, right?
And DeMeltz says Sting and Lex Luger went to a no decision. So it was a no decision, according to DeMeltz anyway, with Flair and the Giant. From a logic standpoint, the rules made less than no sense. It was explained that the tag titles were at stake, plus the TV title and the world title, but that Sting could pin Luger or the Giant could pin Flair and win their titles. Since it was a tag match, that made no sense, and it should have been a four corners match. Okay, that's cool. I'm seeing a pattern here this week. I'm agreeing with some of the shit that Meltz is saying, at least for this episode of Nitro, or they should have never said the Giant could pin Flair and win the world title since it wasn't going to happen anyway. I could see that point of view as well. And then for more logic, with Giant out of commission, either Sting or Luger should have been easy pickings, beating Ric Flair for the world title here with the Giant with the coffee in his face. So instead, they simply left the ring, Sting and Luger did, according to Meltz, because they were scared of the blind Giant, is the way Meltzer took it anyway. So I didn't really pay attention to how or why they left the ring, but it's just coffee to the eyes of the Giant, and then the match is just over. So yeah, it would have been easy pickings for Flair. It's shitty booking for sure, and you can't blame Hogan this week.
Pay attention, if you pay attention, as soon as Giant gets hit, Sting just dumps out of the ring. Luger's thinking twice about it, and then all of a sudden he just gets out like in front of hard cam, and he just stands out on the floor and watches the Giant go after Flair or whatever happens, and they just hightail it out of there. Like they just totally gave up an easy opportunity to win the world title. But I guess Flair did hightail it out of there. I don't know what you can do with easy pickings when you're the guy that you need to beat hightails it out of there, and he's already in the locker room before you even get out of the ring. So
he was just getting a
I see
towel.
what he's saying.
He was just getting a towel. He wasn't running away.
Yeah, well, yeah, terrible.
Segment of the night was the tag team main event. Once again, was it Public Enemy and the American Males, Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit, or I know you were looking at that Ming and Hacksaw match.
Definitely not Ming and Hacksaw. I honestly, I put down main event, I guess. I really don't know. I wasn't entertained by much of anything. Eddie and Benoit felt underwhelming, and the rest of the card was just boring and predictable. I was like, it feels like once they do something, the shoe or coffee, they just keep going back to it over and over and over again. Like you said, Hogan took I got the shoe, so you're going to have to come up with something else. And then it's like, so they go to coffee, and we're going to see it for the next 3 weeks, and here we are. So it's just very lazy. It's very repetitive. Same shit over and over, like on Nitro.
Yeah, the Lethal Lottery's lazy. The finishes are lazy here on Nitro. The storylines are lazy. A lot of laziness right now in the booking department.
Very, very flat and uneventful and not very entertaining.
And I have to go with the tag team main event as well, only because it was probably the most entertaining thing on the show. But I agree with you. None of this show was really stand out. None of it was very good. I could have done without this entire show. And really, nothing happened here that really had you skip this show. It would have really led up to anything other than you want to tell the story for Flair and Giant next week. I guess you could argue that point. But even then, you really don't need that to go into the title match.
No, you really don't.
We move over to the USA Network and Monday Night Raw for April 22nd. Back again in San Bernardino from the April 1st taping. This is the final leg of that taping. It's the go-home show to In Your House, Good Friends, Better Enemies. Last week, we saw Savio Vega cheated to win the Intercontinental title. So, Earl Hebner declared Savio the winner. Tim White declared Goldust the winner. That's when Gorilla Monsoon held up the title. It's vacant. And we get the rematch here. It's kind of funny how it plays out this week that we could see both Savio and Goldust matches on the same Monday Warfare show as we kick off the show with a Savio Vega promo as Goldust makes his way to the ring for the rematch between the two. And they go right at it. Savio Vega with the early advantage. Goldust tries to run away, but why would you do that? This is for your belt. You're trying to win your belt back. Savio goes after Goldust, but it's Goldie who lures Savio back in the ring to take over. He even manages to kiss Savio right on the lips. And Vega makes that big angry comeback, but takes a back kick low blow from Goldust, and Goldust right back on top, working Savio's leg through a commercial break. And back from commercial, what an odd positioning for this. An insert promo from the Ultimate Warrior in the middle of the title match, during which a chin lock is used, so it makes a little bit of sense. And Warrior claims he's going to, and I quote, bust open a hole in Goldust at In Your House, Steve.
He seemed a little lost. Like initially, it's kind of like last week, but the opposite. Like he started off making sense at the beginning, and then he kind of just lost. The wheels fell off a little bit at the end. Whereas last week, the wheels fell off at the beginning, and when he went to normal, whatever normal is, he started making sense. And this one was the complete opposite. So he's batting 50% right now with his promo since he's been back. Back
to the match, Goldust with Savio wraps his legs around the ring post, but Vega pulls Goldie into the post instead, posts Goldust out on the floor. Vega inside the ring, both men down as Stone Cold Steve Austin and Ted DiBiase make their way to ringside. Goldust mounts Vega in the corner, crotch to face, as he takes over control once again, and we go into a second commercial break in this match. And back from break this time, Savio Vega slides out of a curtain call. Great move. And he nails a spin kick on Goldust. I wrote, what amazing agility for a guy Savio's size. Goldust tries that inverted suplex, and Savio, like a cat, just glides over, lands on his feet just effortlessly, and nails that big spin kick yet again. Savio then telegraphs a backdrop. However, Goldust slams Savio's face into the mat. Marlena then distracts the referee. Savio Vega with the old O'Connor roll. We see that a lot in 1989 NWA. Now they're stealing the spot here in 96. Savio with the O'Connor roll. Goldust kicks him off. Savio goes running forward into the ropes where Steve Austin's waiting with a $1 million title belt shot to the head of Savio Vega. Goldust regains the Intercontinental title in 15 minutes. And after the finish we saw last week, I wrote, how the fuck is this okay though, Steve?
I guess Tim White didn't want to come down for this one, but no, I didn't think of it when I watched it, but yeah, it makes no sense. How come Gorilla didn't come out and see this one and do something about it? it's one of those rare miscues from WWF as far as continuity and things like that that you didn't really see too often back then. I mean, it happened, but it wasn't frequent. When you have a finish last week where they got a DQ, when it should have been a DQ or something like that, and you set up this match, you need a clean finish either way, and they didn't give us that. Obviously, we got the new champion. Nothing happened, but you can't do something like that, then turn around and do the next week, do the exact same thing, and not do the same thing you did last week.
And it was the exact same thing. It's a belt shot again. It's essentially not the same finish because Austin's involved, but there's another belt shot taking place. Another guy's cheated out of a loss. Savio should have petitioned here. Maybe Savio should have picked up the services of Clarence Mason at this point.
Definitely should have. That'd have been interesting.
Well, it could have been. We see an In Your House video. We learned last week that HBK and Diesel will be no holds barred. They sell that here as the pay-per-view is only 6 days away. And then it's Warrior merchandise time. And he even gets his own theme music played during this because, of course, he does. We learned that there's 2 Warrior shirts for $40. I was digging one of these shirts, the second one they showed here.
The one on the left? I like the one on the left.
Yeah, that looks pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely.
It's Vader time. We already know the finish to this because Eric Bischoff spoiled it for us on Nitro. He takes on Fatu here. Vader has Razor Ramon at In Your House. This match is joined in progress, but it looks like it just started. Vader going to do something for the first time tonight, they say on audio, on the commentary. Of course, this audio is recorded after the fact, and that's important here by the end of the match. Vader attacks, but Fatu makes the big comeback and knocks Vader down not once, but twice. I was actually surprised Fatu got this much offenses. It wasn't long, but he did get some offense here. Bumped Vader a few times, and even nails the running diamond cutter. And the top rope splash. That's, of course, Fatu's finisher, but Vader pops up. He no-sells Fatu's finisher. You did not see that a lot back this day and age in the WWF, guys just popping up from finishers like over on Nitro. And then Vader with the big clothesline turns Fatu inside out. He goes up for the Vader bomb, but you hear the smart marks, this post-WrestleMania crowd chanting, moonsault, moonsault, moonsault. And so Vader gets up for the Vader bomb, and he gives them what they ask for. Vader climbs to the top rope and delivers the moonsault on Fatu, picks up the win in only 1 minute and 54 seconds. It's reported that Vader actually got heat from Vince McMahon here for doing the moonsault rather than the Vader bomb because it wasn't heelish enough. He was getting pops for doing it, and that's not what you want to do when you're a heel. And so Vader, of course, did that, placated to the smart marks in the crowd.
Yeah, I'm sure it's another one of those things on the long list of stuff that happened to Vader that probably didn't keep him in favor with Vince, so to speak. I don't know. It's a different crowd. It's that post-Mania crowd. Give them what they want. You know, they stuck through a 3-hour Mania. This is a 4-hour taping. You know, just give them what they want. Let them get something, you know. Vince needs to quit being a dick.
And poor Fatu, the writing's on the wall at this point. He's getting all of his moves in, but he's, reached jobber status at this point. Unfortunately, he's not really coming out here and getting very many wins. He's just coming out here to put the bigger names over at this point. It's unfortunate. I thought maybe there were some legs to be had here when the Fatu character initially debuted. Obviously, by this point, that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. We
see a clip of a match from Germany where Jake the Snake Roberts had recently taken on Owen Hart back on April 20th in Beirut, Germany, involving, you see Jake basically looking to go for the win here on Owen Hart, but Davey Boy Smith attacks the Snake Man. And Meltzer notes that the angle was pretty bad since it was hard for Davey Boy to look vicious with his knee so tender, Davey Boy rocking an injured knee himself. And the bad knee was obvious since all he did was stomp, which is where knee injuries become the most obvious, says DeMeltz. Jake Roberts wound up making his own comeback here, Steve, and laid Smith out and put the snake on him, which is kind of a weird thing, says DeMeltz, for a face to get all of his revenge before the In Your House match takes place. Of course, it's going to be Owen and the Bulldog taking on Ahmed and Jake Roberts at the In Your House. It's also surprising to see them put Smith in this position against a lower-level babyface, says DeMeltz, when the idea was to start rebuilding the Bulldog for Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, I don't know why you would show this clip. I mean, just leave it for Germany if that's what your plan is to...
I think they just wanted the storyline for the pay-per-view is the only thing I could really come up with here.
Yeah, that's probably it. Just unfortunate. Jake looked like shit in a short clip, too, just so y'all know. God, he looked terrible. Yeah, he was huffing and puffing just to get that DDT. Like, when he shakes his hand in the air, he was, like, dying. I don't know how long the match was before he got to that point, but Jesus. Get into shape, old man.
Which never actually happens. At least not until like DDP yoga. And even then, questionable.
COPD took care of that, you know.
We go back to the ring with the Godwins, accompanied by Hillbilly Jim and, as Vince McMahon calls the dog, Old Blue, as the Godwins take on Tim Patterson and Yoshihiro Tajiri. Did you catch that, Steve?
Oh, definitely did. I know those boots and those trunks from his ECW days. Tajiri. We'll see how smart he is, too, in this match. It's excellent.
Yeah, it's very intelligent of Tajiri. And if you didn't know Sonny won Best Buns over the last 3 weeks, they make a reminder of it again here as they replay the Slammy Awards where Sonny wins Best Buns and Manager of the Year as well. The Body Donnas, and we see clips of them, how they stole the tag team titles, the tag team title finals from the Godwins at WrestleMania, thanks to the help of Sonny and her assets. Jerry Lawler has reportedly left commentary to interview the Donnas, but he doesn't really do so. We get an insert promo again, instead from Sonny and the Body Donnas. No Jerry Lawler in sight. Sonny alludes that they will slop the Godwins before too long. Jerry Lawler then returns from interviewing the Body. I don't know if they had planned for him to, and then he didn't. I don't really know what the story was here, but Lawler returns to commentary and says Sonny has a surprise for the Godwins. As, here we go, I think this is what you're alluding to, with Tajiri hits some nice offense, standing moonsault, even gets a slow motion replay of the move, and wisely tags out of the match before the Godwins can do any offensive moves to Tajiri here. I don't know if somebody told him to do that, or he did that all on his own. I don't know if he got that information from, one of the agents backstage. I don't know if he was taught this in Japan. I don't know, but I love that Tajiri came in, showcased himself, even got an instant replay spot in on a, he's a job guy basically. And he gets an instant replay spot in, kind of like the Hardy Boys would get every once in a while with some of their stuff. And that was it. He tagged out. Perfect timing. I loved it.
And he didn't get back in either. So, definitely wise move there. It's not like a tryout, but he's still going to make it memorable for whoever watched it. So, very, very smart. Awesome stuff by Tajiri.
And as Tim Patterson gets in the ring, he takes the brunt of the offense from the Godwins. Sonny to ringside with the World Tag Team titles. Hillbilly Jim with Old Blue, the old dog Blue, chases Sonny off backstage. And Lawler implies that Hillbilly Jim was lured away from ringside. And we'll see why here. After Hank slop drops Patterson for the win in 3 minutes, 35 seconds, it's the Bonnie Donnas to the ring. As they attack the Godwins, they post Henry Godwin on the floor. Then the double slingshot suplex to Phineas as they rub slop all over the face of Phineas Godwin in the ring post-match.
Yeah, just a nice little angle to get some heat onto the match going into In Your House. So it was good. I mean, the slingshot suplex looked way better with the Donnas doing it than the dudes ever did. And not a bad angle. And what's weird is instead of just dumping the slop on him, they stuck their hands in the bucket and poured it,
smeared it all over his face,
threw it on him,
right?
And rubbed it. Yeah, smeared it all in his face instead of just dumping it on him. I wouldn't want to touch that shit. But
I think they just wanted to keep the slop off the mat.
That could be it too. Yeah, definitely awkward. You just assume they're gonna pick it up and dump it, but they set the bucket right next to his head and just start grabbing it and rubbing all over his face. So good angle there.
We saw him debut recently. He put The Undertaker out with a mandible claw. It's Mankind to the ring, taking on Aldo Montoya. Aldo attacks Mankind with a dropkick in the corner, but Mankind no sells. And Mankind with a leg drop across Aldo Montoya on the apron. And then a short arm elbow. You've seen Jake's short clothesline? Mankind here with a short arm elbow. I liked it. Unique moveset, at least for the WWF. You don't see these moves a lot in the WWF. They're thinking, it's a guy that came in thinking outside of the box. It's not the basic offense that we see from most of the guys here in the WWF. We actually go into a commercial break, even though this is basically a squash. Aldo comes back from break with a comeback. A drop kick into the corner on Mankind, and goes to the top rope, but leaps off into a punch to the nose. I don't know if he was supposed to leap down into the mandible claw. I kind of felt like that's where they were going, but instead he takes a punch to the schnoz, right in the schnoz there, as Mankind takes back over, puts Aldo in the tree of woe, and nails the running elbow drop. Yanks his hair out, and then lands the stuffed pile driver, the cactus pile driver, if you will. And it's mandible claw time. Mankind puts Aldo out of his misery. 3 minutes and 27 seconds as the soothing piano music plays him out. And Aldo with more foaming at the mouth from the mandible claw here.
just what he needed. I mean, feed him some opponents to get him over. The moveset's there, the gimmicks there, everything's there that you need for this guy, and it's awesome. I love his offense right here. I'm not a Mick Foley fan by any means, but I love Mankind. I love the gimmick, and I love rewatching like when he first came in. I don't like all the changes and everything else that he goes through throughout his career, but this right here is excellent. This feels like a continuation of the ECW Cactus Jack and the promos and the story development and things like that, and the character development that he was really good at in ECW, and it's just carrying on here with Mankind.
Yeah, I like that guys like Mankind here, even the Body Dentists to a lesser extent, are being used, at least at this point, the Body Dentists are being used seriously. They're not a complete comedy act. They're a cartoon version of maybe like a Smoky Mountain tag team, basically. Obviously, the blonde hair and the goofy outfits are one thing, but what they're doing feels very, I don't know, like Southern Territory, the attacking the baby faces, smearing things on, just things like they're trying to get heat. They're not a comedy act yet, or they're not underneath Sonny completely yet. They're actually being used with Sonny still at this point, and they're doing real angles to get heat here, rather than some of the goofiness that goes on later in their run, at least as heels. And the Mankind character so far is a great job. They're doing a good job booking him. We haven't seen The Undertaker. He's working guys that are on the underneath, Bob Holly, Aldo Montoya, so their names we know, and he's putting them out pretty fast with ease.
The Mankind character is excellent right now, for sure.
The show continues on, and it's a video recapping the long history between Shawn Michaels and Big Daddy Cool Diesel. Of course, that's going to come to an end at the In Your House pay-per-view, at least as far as TV goes. But it's Shawn and Diesel in the main event at In Your House this Sunday night, and they do a good job here with a video recap of their tumultuous time together here in the WWF as we close the show with a Diesel locker room promo from Germany. Diesel says he will teach Shawn Michaels a lesson, the final chapter in HBK's career. Diesel doesn't want the belt. Having the belt was the worst year of his life. I can't believe Vince let this one slip through the cracks. I just can't see Vince being okay with this line here, where he basically shits all over the belt, meaning nothing to him. He doesn't want the world title. He says he doesn't get accolades, but people know who really led the new generation, referring to himself, not Bret Hart, not Shawn Michaels. It was Diesel who ran the new generation. Shawn is a dime a dozen, but Diesel is a genetic wonder. Guys his size don't grow on trees. He threatens Vince McMahon, too. Says he has a score to settle with Vince. Of course, I'm sure that's a smart mark playing in there to the smart marks. Anything can happen, says Diesel. So he teases that he might get his hands on Vince on the way out the door. And of course, by this point, the story's out. It's everywhere. Diesel's leaving with Razor to WCW. You don't know exactly when he's leaving, but you kind of figure it's got to be shortly after this pay-per-view or after this pay-per-view. So maybe he will get those shots in on Vince on the way out the door. Of course, it doesn't work like that, but I love that he kind of threw that in there. Just another selling point to the pay-per-view as Doc Hendricks' shit band plays out this episode of Raw.
Yeah, really good promo by Diesel. He kind of made that same comment after WrestleMania or whenever, after, what was the Survivor Series? When he went heel.
The I'm back promo.
Yeah, so he kind of made those same comments. Then he's just kind of reinforcing it now. Like, I don't really care about belts at this point. It was miserable being a fake person. That's not who Kevin Nash is. That's not who Diesel is. He doesn't want to live that life again. It makes sense. But, yeah, he did an excellent job of throwing that out there. Like, okay, you guys know I'm leaving, so I might take some shots at Vince on the way out. You better tune in to find out. And obviously, they actually deliver on the threats. It may not be Vince, but they actually deliver. So, to a degree, anyway, I would say. Really good promo by Diesel there.
Segment of the night, Steve. Was it the Godwins against Tim Patterson and Tajiri sighting? Was it the awesome Jake versus Owen Hart clip with Davey Boy running in? The Vader moonsault? Or was it Goldust taking on Savio Vega in the rematch for the title?
I'm going to go with Savio and Goldust again. It wasn't as good as their last week's match. It felt like this one, Goldust worked the leg a lot. Kind of took up, I felt like they knew they had to go a little bit longer, so they worked the leg spot throughout the match. And that's smart because last week the legs is what got Goldust, all the kicks and things. So if you work the legs, Savio can't really do that. So it's very smart storytelling by Goldust there by working the leg the majority of the match. I'm looking at this show a little differently now than what I did when I took my notes, which is funny because I just did the notes like 3 hours ago. But it just felt like this was underwhelming at first. But the more you talk about it, it was actually a really good show. Vader and Fatu was fine. Fatu's a great seller. So he did good for Vader.
And apparently a good company man, too,
to
to go out here and fucking basically get handed his ass in under 2 minutes.
Yeah, pretty much. And then, the Godwin's match was nothing, but the angle is what mattered there. And it really helped deliver to hype up their match a little bit in your house. And obviously Mankind with the character development going on and just doing more of what he did to get himself over. And then that last package, just the history, seeing all the history of Diesel and Shawn together, people forget. Like, you watch, episode after episode, but you kind of forget everything that happened. And, like, these dudes have been buddies since 93. Here we are, 96. It's been 3 years that they've been together in one way or another, on the opposite side or being friends. So it's really cool to see that video package and that history of them together. Yeah, pretty solid stuff overall. I'm going with Savio and Goldust again.
Yeah, I'm going to do the same thing, although I wish they played the Sunny video again this week. I wouldn't have complained about that, but Goldust and Savio just, it's a one-match show again, really. I mean, as far as wrestling, really good wrestling goes, or like competitive match goes, so you really almost have to go with that, but I thought they did a good job with the squash matches. Like you said, the Godwins, I'm not going to write home to about any Godwin, although it was cool to see Tajiri in there. But it was the Donna's attack afterwards. It was pretty cool. I thought Mankind looked great out here. They told Cactus Jack to go get this over. He's doing a great job with the character right now. I like the offense. I feel like it gets lazier as time goes on. I don't remember having all this cool offense the entire time. But I'm enjoying him here so far for sure. And I think that's a common theme. You pointed out, you've said this a lot in the last couple episodes, it feels like. And not just here on this Warfare, but like a couple more. They've been doing a lot of rematches lately, and you keep saying the sentence, it's not as good as the first one. And I think that's a common theme lately. They've been doing a lot of really good matches, and then they've been doing rematches, and they really haven't been living up to the hype of the originals. So maybe they should learn from that eventually here, I hope. But yeah, I'm going to go with you there, too. It's Goldust and Savio all day long on this show. And those ratings be in. WWF Raw scored a big win in the ratings on April 22nd with a 3.3 rating and a 5.0 share. Its best figure head-to-head with Nitro to date, while Nitro drops down to a 2.7 and a 4.1 share. And shame on them. Of course, that show really was a nothing show over there on WCW Monday Nitro. So I have to say that the real winner here for me this week, I'm just going to cut ahead and say that real quick, would have to be Raw simply because it's just the better show. And I think that the people made the right choice this week when they were choosing between Nitro and Raw to watch Raw. And breaking it down into the quarter hours tells an even more interesting story. WWF actually destroyed WCW for the first 45 minutes of the show. An hour-long show, first 45 minutes, Raw killed Nitro, leading 3.5 to 2.4, over a point higher rating there, which, if it had held up, would have been the largest margin for a WWF win to date. However, it reversed in the last 15 minutes as WCW shot up from a 2.4 all the way up to a 3.2 for that tag team title match. Of course, like you said, Bischoff promised every single title was on the line, and that apparently that worked here. Of course, Nitro still loses the ratings, but what a jump, almost nearly a point ratings gain based on that 4-man tag team clusterfuck title match that Bischoff sold early in the show, while the WWF fell off from a 3.5 all the way down to a 2.9, which closed the final rating. So Raw does win, but that last quarter hour, this is where the first quarter hour really comes into play, it looks like. Yeah, Bischoff with his selling of these, any title can change hands, it seemed to work.
Definitely did. And probably Bischoff probably thought, mission accomplished. They did what they wanted to do. I'm not surprised. I don't know how the WWF has kept the momentum, but they've kind of really, they really took advantage of that week that WCW wasn't there, and they've carried it with them. And I will say, like, the last 3 weeks at Raw have been really, really good as far as building stories from Mania to the In Your House, and then getting these new characters over and putting them in spotlight matches, not necessarily against name opponents, but just really showing them off. Like, okay, this is the new generation. These are the new guys. This is what's taking over. And you couldn't ask for a better way to establish this new talent. They've done an excellent job.
Yeah, it's Mark Marrow, it's Mankind, it's the Body Donnas, for better or worse, it's the Godwins. I mean, they're getting these guys on TV. They're telling you these are the guys going forward, at least here in 1996. And it's also funny because reruns of Murder, She Wrote, which my grandparents watched prior to Raw, preceding Raw, were getting a 3.1 rating. So they're barely these are reruns of Murder, She Wrote, Steve. This shows you how far off the marker wrestling still is from the casual person out there, because the reruns of Murder, She Wrote are falling just underneath the actual Raw rating, which, I mean, it is what it is. Meanwhile, over there in WCW world, the lead into Nitro at this point, Thunder in Paradise is drawing a measly 1.1, which is probably, again, another good reason why they don't mind taking Nitro to 2 hours.
Definitely not. I love me some Murder, She Wrote. So I watch reruns all the time. Even binge on Peacock now that I got premium, I guess, for free with Xfinity. So I'll be throwing down watching some Murder, She Wrote.
I try to get into it, and I just can't. It gets campy sometimes, but I'm a big Matlock guy myself. I wish that was on Peacock. But the real winner here,
Matlock,
Steve.
as well.
Yeah, Matlock's the man. I love me some Matlock. I just finished binging all of that earlier back in 2020. I watched the whole run. The real winner, I already said for me, was Raw, Steve. I'm going to ask you the same question. Who's your real winner this week?
I put down initially Nitro, but like I just said, after listening to talk about the show and everything, it's definitely a Raw. You can't go wrong with Savio and Goldust. Vader and Fatu was good for the 2 minutes they were out there. Godwin's, the angle was nice. Mankind is awesome right now. So, I mean, all in all, beginning to end, it was a really solid show. So I'm going with Raw.
Okay, so we agree
Nitro
again this week.
sucked.
Raw has been killing Nitro the last few weeks, not just in real ratings, but just with our opinions as well. Just the better show. And it's funny to watch Vince just stay that course and continue to build towards the next pay-per-view. Everything makes sense. We even get treated, I use that term loosely, to that video package of Jake over in Germany with the Davey Boy Smith Owen match. So it's they're doing what they can to build everything on the show up, and I got to give them credit for that. There's some good stuff on that show, and then there's also Warrior and Goldust on that In Your House pay-per-view. I can't wait to fill that time when we do the watch-along. But yeah, again, Steve, we're done with another one. We wrap it up as we continue on with April here. And well, we got one more week of April to come, and then we're into May. So next week on Monday Warfare, it's 2 more weeks of Nitro, 2 more weeks of Raw. In 2 weeks' time, it's again 2 more weeks of Nitro, 2 more weeks of Raw. And in 3 weeks, Nitro will go to 2 hours. You know what that means, Steve? We're changing our format. It's going to be 1 week of Nitro and 1 week of Raw as we give a little more time to cover the changes in WCW, the layout of the programming, more cruiserweights. The Luchadors will be in here. Obviously, the NWO headed in, Hall, Nash, guys like that. It's just a changing of the guard in WCW to a degree, at least until Hulk Hogan gets back.
Yep, I'm excited for it, man. Can't wait. It's on the horizon. The best part in the history of Nitro, it's coming up. Some people may disagree. I don't. Once Hall comes down and you see it, that's that till about October is where it's at. So I'm excited for it.
So for the next couple weeks of Monday Warfare, we'll continue the build to Slamboree and the shitfest that is that pay-per-view. That'll then go up on our Patreon account. Again, patreon.com/WrestleCopia for all of our watch-alongs. $5 a month. Subscribe now, please. And WrestleMania will be up soon. In Your House, Good Friends, Better Enemies. And by the time we get to that Monday Warfare show, hopefully we'll have Slamboree up as well. That should be interesting, trying to make it through that one. And in 3 weeks, though, it's the new 2-hour Nitro format. Looking forward to that. It's going to be very interesting to see what they do to fill those early shows with time. Maybe some longer quality matches, I hope. Maybe some Malenko and Guerrero type things. We'll see what happens there. I know we get the Mauler and Steve Dahl, that's for sure, on that first 2-hour episode. And Scott Hall will be in by that point. But he's got to get through Vader first here at the In Your House, Steve. I want to thank you for joining me again this week. Lots of news this week regarding Brian Pillman, contracts, and all that other good stuff. But Hogan on his way out, at least for a while. It should be fun for at least 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, to say the least. We need to get a clock up or a timer or a counter or something of how many episodes of Nitro does it take for us to hate Hollywood Hogan after he joins the NWO. Because
Works for me.
I think initially I love it, but when you try to rewatch this stuff and it's the same shit week in and week out, I have a hard time understanding how they got 83 weeks in a row. But I guess we'll talk about that as it comes. But it sounds like a good counter. You know, we had Steiner Watch. We need Hollywood Watch or something.
Hogan Watch.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's been fun.
Yeah, we'll definitely come up with something for that. I like that idea because I'm curious to see how long before I get sick of it as well. I remember, well, I'll tell that story when the time comes. It's ways off, but I'll remember it when we get there. It's actually it's a funny story to me when Hogan made the heel turn. But yeah, that was quite a ways off still. And once we go to that 1 week format, it's going to take a while to get there. But when we do, it's going to be a brand new world in professional wrestling, to say the very least. So yeah, I appreciate you, Steve, man. And I appreciate everybody who continues to listen to Monday Warfare, because we're trying to crank these shows out as fast as we can. And it's just 2 weeks, every week's up until now. We've really gotten through 8 months now, 8 months of this Raw and Nitro war. And it's been an up and down battle between two sides. It's been fun, and the fun will continue. Steve, thanks for being here, my friend.
No problem, man. It was fun. Can't wait for the next one.
And I want to thank all you guys for listening to us once again, subscribing, downloading both Monday Warfare. You can find us at Monday Warfare on Twitter. Subscribe or follow us there. You can also follow our sister show, the Wrestling Memory Grenade. We're going to be moving away from NWA 89. As you hear this, we're going to be headed over to a new promotion in a new year. To find out which one, you'll have to tune in to the Wrestling Memory Grenade and follow us on Twitter there at Wrestling Grenade. That's RASSLIN Grenade. And once again, I want to thank everyone for listening to Monday Warfare, The Battles Within.